It's Free Talk Live. You can dial toll free. You can take control of the airwaves if you want, or not. It's fine too. Most of you will not, and that's okay. With you tonight, it's Ian
and Chris.
And so international news to start with here. Then coming up, violent video games. Is there a link between violence in video games and teenage aggression? Chris, you've got the story about that. That's on the way here tonight. And our toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. But before we get to that, we'll talk about real-life aggression from the hands of the Venezuelan troops to via bullets into the bodies of the opposition down there. For those that are maybe newer to the show and have not heard what's been going on down in Venezuela, it's hard to encapsulate it into a 30-second recap. But basically, the country has been devastated by hyperinflation and socialism. That has resulted in people not trusting the elections anymore. There's two individuals who are claiming to be the president of the country. One, Nicolas Maduro, who was the most recent president. He's saying he's now in for a second term. And then there's another guy named Juan Guaido, who is claiming he is the true president of the country, that the people of Venezuela are fed up with this Maduro character and all the socialism, and so they're going to put a different socialist in. Juan Guaido. And so that's what the conflict has been. Different countries around the world, governments have been weighing in on who they are recognizing as the president, the true president of the country. So Trump, for instance, and a bunch of the Latin American countries, many in Europe, are acknowledging that Juan Guaido, they say, is the president, and Maduro is being acknowledged by countries like Russia and, I believe, Iran. Probably Cuba as well. In fact, we can talk about Cuba coming up here, too. There's an interesting story about them getting a little bit more internet access, which is kind of a game changer for people that are historically very oppressed and unfree. So the conflict there in Venezuela hasn't just been political. There's been a lot of protests that have been happening like in the streets.
Like everyday kind of protests?
Yeah, I don't know how heavy they are every day. Certainly, there's probably something happening on a daily basis. A couple of years ago, there was a prolonged.
It seems like there's nonstop protests in the news. I don't know if that's just fabricated.
It's hard to know what's true. I mean, as far as the news, I actually have, one of our listeners on our Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm put in our news and show prep room a link to RT. Now, remember, RT backs the current president, or Russia.
Russia does, yeah.
Right, and RT stands for Russia Today, and it's funded fully by the Russian government.
Well, it would be interesting if they had a different perspective.
They do, and that's what I was going to tell you.
Okay,
so
interesting.
RT has an article here and video, title, "Where Are the Empty Shelves? Max Blumenthal Tours Caracas Supermarket." So the claim that we've made on the air has been that it's hard to find food, that there have been lines. I mean, over the last few years, these reports have been coming out fairly consistently out of Venezuela, that it's very, very hard to get the most basic food items, that many people spend hours and hours and hours, like 30-something hours a month, just waiting in lines outside of grocery stores to try to get whatever limited amount of supplies are being delivered to that store. And like if you try to take a picture of the line, a military guard who's standing and watching the line will steal your camera from you, right? So that's the claim, is that not only are these lines present and the food is very, very not so present, but also if you try to provide evidence of it and they see you doing it, they'll take your camera from you. They don't want to get it out.
It's interesting because I've seen pictures of lines, presumably in Venezuela, of these grocery stores. So, I mean, people are either getting them or they're fake or something.
Wait, you're saying the lines are fake? Or the pictures?
I guess the pictures.
Yeah, I've seen a picture or two as well.
Because they're certainly plastered all over the news. Whether or not that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean they are fake. It obviously, you could get a hidden, there's got to be, if this is happening every day, I have a hard time believing that there's going to be a guard who's going to be able to prevent a hidden camera from taking a picture or somebody.
Yeah, people are going to get the photos out.
Yeah, it's just, there's cameras everywhere. And even in Venezuela, you're going to have cell phones with cameras in them and things of that nature.
Still, though, it makes you wonder where the truth actually lies, because both sides have an interest in portraying their version of the story as well as they can, whatever propaganda it is that they want to get out there. And there's nothing inherently wrong with propaganda as long as it's telling the truth. But the question is this propaganda telling the truth on either side? So there's just so much to cover here, but let's start with the shooting, and then we can get into the grocery stores and see what you think is actually going on. If you want to weigh in, you can join us here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. The story from The Independent over in the UK, Adam Forrest reporting that at least one person has been shot dead by Venezuelan security forces during a clash on the border with Brazil. According to local officials, another dozen people were injured after troops opened fire in the eastern town of Anarchapulco on Friday, according to doctors and witnesses. Gran Sabana Mayor Emilio Gonzalez identified the woman who was killed as Zoraida Rodriguez, a member of an indigenous community. The mayor said the members of the Pemen indigenous group clashed with the Venezuelan National Guard and the army, who were moving tanks to the border. Gonzalez claimed the soldiers fired rubber bullets and tear gas. Some members of the area's indigenous community have expressed their support for the opposition's plans to bring in foreign aid over the border this weekend, despite the objection of President Nicolas Maduro. So what did Maduro do? I don't know if you heard, but he closed the border to Brazil.
Wow. The entire border was closed.
Yeah.
Not just the aid trucks?
No, the entire border has been closed amid an escalating standoff over allowing aid from the United States to enter the country. Some Venezuelans crossed over the border to the Brazilian border city of Pacaraima near Camargue to stock up on supplies shortly before the border was shut, according to Brazilian media. Brazilian authorities are reportedly still moving humanitarian aid to the country's northern border with Venezuela. And on Friday, Brazil's Air Force sent a plane with food and medicine to Boa Vista in the northern state of Roraima. These will end up in Pacaraima, according to the Associated Press. Maduro said he was also considering shuttering the border with neighboring Colombia. The opposition has vowed to move aid from the U.S. and other nations over the border from Colombia on Saturday. So it sounds like things are getting, once again, pretty heated over there in Venezuela, where essentially you've got these two political sides that are playing against one another, and it's all politics. But unfortunately, all of this involves people's lives. We're talking about politicians who are making plays, political gamesmanship or whatever, over food stocks, right? Like food supplies to get into the hands of hungry people. I mean, if it weren't the case that people in Venezuela are hungry, then why all the show over let's get aid into the country? Why the numbers being reported from Venezuela of the average person losing like 12 pounds or 15 pounds in a year's time?
Ian, of course, it's fabricated by the U.S. government, so it's not real, and they want to keep out the enemy, the spy that's infiltrating their system, their government.
Wait, who's the spy?
Well, the aid trucks, of course.
Oh, you're saying that Venezuela's current government is worried about the aid trucks being U.S. Affiliated spies.
Right.
Gotcha. That's an interesting theory. It's just why you wouldn't want to allow people to bring food into your country.
Because then it's giving into that line of argument that there are hungry people in Venezuela.
Right, I see what you're saying. So they have to pretend like everything's fine here. We don't need your aid, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, if that were true, of course, and it could,
who knows?
Let's assume it is. Let's just assume it is. You probably don't want your enemy who's trying to depose you coming into the country with aid trucks. I mean, it's just going to be saying, yeah, you're right, my country's failed, or I have failed.
The toll-free number here, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. So again, this weekend, Juan Guaido and the opposition talking about coming in from Colombia over the border with the aid trucks. So Maduro talking about closing the border with Colombia. And of course, the reality is closing the border doesn't just keep aid from getting in. It also keeps Venezuelans from getting out. There's more on the way here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. What is the situation with the supermarkets there? We can look into that coming up as well on Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want. This is Free Talk Live. You're invited here if you want to join us, talk about Venezuela, or whatever it is that's on your mind, you can bring up anything you want. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
855-450-3733. Look, if you're an individual who rejects the initiation of force, like we do, or you agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle, I should say, and you agree to abide by the non-aggression principle, then you qualify to use liberty.menu. It's a business directory for liberty-minded folks, libertarians, voluntarists, liberty-loving anarchists. It also includes categories for digital content creators. So you don't just have to be, have a physical business or something like that. Or maybe an events coordinator. You want to put your event on liberty.menu to get some extra promotion. You can do that. Liberty.menu. You can use code FTL and get a special badge because it's free to use the site. So we can't give you a discount. It's free. Go ahead and put up there whatever it is that you want other liberty-minded folks to know about. Maybe you'll get some new business out of it. Liberty.menu as we continue here. Going to your calls and thoughts. We can talk more about Venezuela. What's the real story? Now there's two counterpoised sides here that are saying, well, on one hand, there's no food. You can't get food. You got to wait in lines for hours at a time just to get some table scraps. And then the other side now saying with a report on RT, what are you talking about? There's plenty of food here. Look at this grocery store that we're in. All these products are on the shelves. Everything's fine. So we can talk about that and the shots apparently fired at the border of Brazil by Venezuelan troops against an indigenous group because the indigenous group has turned against the government status quo there. Let's go, though, to the phones first. We got Dave in New Hampshire on Free Talk Live. Hello, Dave.
Yes, back to something we can do something about. The New Hampshire Civil Liberties Union is back in action.
Oh, yeah. Well, they never stopped being in action, Dave. I mean, they're always out there doing something in the State House. But go ahead.
Maybe I should say they're back in the news. Maybe they're always in the news, too. But in any case, there's this ongoing scandal in New Hampshire over a thing called the Lori List. Have you talked about this much? No,
it's some kind of cop thing, right?
Right. So it's a list of bad cops, basically, or a list of incidents. Over 200 names are on this list, and the government has been trying to keep it secret. Attorney General Gordon, the Republican activist who became Attorney General somehow, is basically now trying to keep people from being able to see this list of bad guys.
That's unfortunate.
So the New Hampshire Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU of New Hampshire, whatever you want to call it, has filed a suit, and that's going to be heard in court in Nashua on the 25th, I think.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Those guys do a lot of good work. The ACLU in New Hampshire, I support them on a yearly basis every year in the last 6 or so years. I've gone to their awards dinner where they hand out the Bill of Rights awards, which is a pretty cool event. And they do really mostly pro-liberty stuff. There's a few issues that they're not right about, but for the most part, they're spot on. They're dead on the immigration issues, civil liberties, from freedom of speech, especially in a lot of cases, taking on activist cases and representing them pro bono in court. I was represented by the ACLU of Massachusetts the time I was arrested in the town hall in Palmer, Massachusetts, for recording video, and they won that case. And I got a $5,000 settlement out of that case. So the ACLU is pretty great.
Sometimes the wish is father to the thought, but I get this feeling, as I watch them, that they're more libertarian than the other ACLUs around the country, because I don't remember liking the ACLUs very much anywhere else that I've ever lived. But I like the one in New Hampshire.
Yeah, if you go into the State House and you happen into one of the, because at the State House in New Hampshire, those that don't know, every single bill gets a hearing. Every one of them. They get a public hearing. You can go and testify. Chris, you and I, we've been to a number of these. The ACLU will frequently have people all over the State House. They've got at least 2 or 3 different folks that are regularly there testifying in favor of freedom on a whole lot of legislation. And it's very rare that I will ever hear the ACLU's official testifiers say things I disagree with. I mean, it's just they're spot on. I would say, I think Darrell W. Perry made this comparison before, and I think he's right about it, that the ACLU is probably as much for freedom as the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is, and they kind of both come down on slightly different issues. But
I think part of the reason has to do with strategy. It's a very strategic organization that is got a very clear mission, and they stick to that mission.
They do.
They don't deviate at all.
They're mostly leftists. I mean, I'll be clear. Like if you go to their dinner and you get to meet people, it's mostly people on the left that support the ACLU in New Hampshire. But you're right, Dave Ridley. When you watch and listen to what they say on the issues and the positions they take, the cases that they take on, I would say 9 times out of 10, maybe even 95 times out of 100, they are doing the right thing.
That's been my experience.
I feel like it's even been higher in the past, to be honest.
Maybe so.
I think it's kind of gone downhill a little bit in the last couple of years, maybe, but
it's really only the ACLU nationally that's gone, even more to the left since.
Yeah, I think that's a
Trump,
fair statement.
Since Trump, and to their credit, you can't blame an organization. I mean, I wouldn't do it, right? But you can't blame an organization for pandering because it has more than tripled their membership numbers and dramatically increased the amount of money they're getting.
That is kind of a problem, but I think it's in some sense I think that can create a problem for an organization when they pander to a crowd that is not actually for the things that they're the same things that they're for. And I think that's kind of where the ACLU has gone, because I don't necessarily know that they've done most of what they've done. I think they would have done either way. Before now, it's just it maybe there wasn't as much pandering going on.
Well, they're happy, man. They got a lot of money coming in now because of Trump. As soon as Trump, basically the membership numbers shot up by multiples of what they were previously. So that's more money.
It's true. It can also be a dangerous thing, though, too, because the organization is strategic, and they've also had the opposite type of thing happen with some of the cases that they took up. I don't know exactly when, but certain cases with the Nazis and the KKK.
Well, there was some talk about them backing off of defending racists. That was one of the changes.
I think that's a mistake because it undermines
I agree with
the
you.
strategic. The point is strategy, right? You need to protect even those. You don't need to protect the people who are in the majority. You need to protect the people who are in the minority.
And the old ACLU would have said that. And so you're right. There has been a difference in the sort of the rhetoric coming out of the national ACLU. I have not heard it. I have not heard any kind of noteworthy change with the New Hampshire one. Dave, any other thoughts you want to share? Go ahead.
Nothing to add.
Hey, thanks, man. That's Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com. Appreciate hearing from you here tonight. The toll-free number, if you want to join us, 855-450-FREE. Peter's in Washington State. Peter, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Actually, I'm in Washington, D.C.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. But what I wanted to talk about is political correctness.
All right, stand by. Here's what I want you to do. Stand by. We're going to bring you back here in just a moment. Make sure you have a chance to actually get your thoughts out. Our toll-free number, if you want to join us, 855-450-FREE. It's that easy to get on the air here on Free Talk Live. National talk show, but yet almost no one calls. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. It's Ian and Chris here in the studio. We got more on what's going on in Venezuela. Not that we can do anything about it, as Ridley suggested, but it's still instructive, and it's something that people really ought to pay attention to, the failure of socialism.
Bitcoin.com wants you to know about SaveItPurse.com. Since launching in 2014, over 200,000 users have saved an average of 15% for a combined $4 million using Bitcoin, or BTC. And now you can use Bitcoin Cash, BCH, to fund your account. You can save between 5 to 33% on things you're going to buy anyway when you shop using SaveItPurse.com. Add items to your cart, fund your account, select your discount, and save. SaveItPurse.com. Save ATPurse.com.
Free Talk Live. You can dial toll-free here and take control of the airwaves. Bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. I got to use AnyPay when I was down in Mexico.
Really?
At Acapulco or Anarchapulco. It was actually at the event. There was a restaurant called Verde Vegan that they don't exist in the hotel normally, but they were set up for Anarchapulco. And I'm not a vegan or anything like that, but I'm willing to try new things. And actually turned out their burritos were really actually pretty good. They tasted like a burrito. They were actually pretty good. They had smoothies and stuff like that. But they actually had AnyPay operational, accepting multiple different cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Dash. And it was super easy to pay, as it always is with AnyPay, except they're putting in the Mexican peso. So when they're typing in a price, they're not typing it in dollars, they're typing it in pesos and collecting that equivalent amount of cryptocurrency from their customers. Because AnyPay is an international product. It does not have to just be used in the United States. They've got, I don't know how many dozens of different world currencies that you can set your AnyPay. If you're the merchant, right, you want to accept cryptocurrency, you decide what the local currency is. So if you're in Venezuela, use the bolivar. If you are in Mexico, use the peso. So there's a bunch of different choices. So no matter where you are in the world, AnyPay will probably work for you to accept cryptocurrency at the point of sale. And of course, I used AnyPay today as well while I was at the Thirsty Owl having some lunch today. So again, it's so easy to pay with cryptocurrency. If you're not doing this system, you're missing out. And it's free for merchants to sign up with. And the sign up is just create a username and password. There's no approval. There's no bureaucrat sitting there poring over paperwork. No one demands your identification. Nothing. It's just username, password, put your crypto wallet addresses in, load the app. That's it. You're accepting cryptocurrency at your point of sale. AnyPay.global. And yes, they are now teamed up with egifter.com. So if you want to buy gift cards with Dash, you can do that through thanks to AnyPay over at egifter.com. So that's another cool way to spend some of the crypto that you might have earned. Some people, what do I do with this crypto? Well, now you can buy gift cards with it at egifter.com with Dash through AnyPay. We go to back to Peter in Washington. Peter, go ahead with your thoughts tonight.
Sure. I just wanted to talk about basically political correctness or cultural Marxism, whatever you want to call it, in universities.
Sure.
I got an email today from my school's president, and it had to do with claims about racism, discrimination, white supremacy. And sure, I can sympathize, the discipline action in regards to racism. But once you hear someone say white supremacy or discrimination, then, that really just makes me question the motive. And essentially what happened at my university
Which university, do you mind saying?
Yeah, it's called the Catholic University of America. And
okay.
It's a Catholic school in Washington, D.C.
Gotcha.
And so essentially what happened was someone during, I guess, Martin Luther King weekend drew a Nazi symbol on a flyer or a poster or something like that. And supposedly that that means that there's a white supremacy crisis going around in my school. And I took the luxury of replying to my president. I'm not sure if she's going to read my email, because who am I? But I took the time to kind of educate her on why discrimination should be okay. And I gave her an example of, hey, the fact that I got up from my bed this morning and went to my classes today means that I discriminated against my bed in favor of my class. And I gave her also an example in the market, and it's pretty basic stuff. So if you have like a pizza shop owner who's a racist, he's a bigot, he doesn't want to serve black, but the guy down the block who's not a bigot and not a racist, he's open to anyone because he's in the business to make money. Well, he's going to put that guy who's racist out of business.
Absolutely.
He's
Exactly. You're cutting down, if you are discriminating against somebody because of their color of their skin, where they were born, their gender, their sexual preference, or whatever, the more discriminatory you are in business, the fewer potential customers you have. You're just literally cutting out your potential customer base by saying, I don't want you to come through my doors. Now, you're right. You ought to be free to make that choice. And in fact, I want to know. I want to know who the racist business owners are. I don't want them to hide it. I want them to be out on Front Street with a sign right on the front door, saying who is and who isn't allowed, because I want to be able to discriminate against that business. I think you're right on here, Peter.
Sure, and just if I can add just one more thing,
sure.
In regards to Nazism, a lot of people think that the Nazis were white supremacists, and for the most part, that could be accurate. They did blame a lot of the failures that they had on the Jews, but in reality, it was the the economic calculation problem that von Mises talks about when he talks about socialism, and people don't, for some reason, they don't recall that the Nazis were actually a socialist party. I mean, that's something that the Nationalist Socialist Party in Germany.
Right, that's what Nazi stands for, is National Socialist. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I actually, I took the time to kind of educate my president on why that Nazi symbol shouldn't really be, it shouldn't cause any issues. And
yeah, I mean, to act like, before you go on, where was the symbol placed?
I think it's like right in front of a picture of Martin Luther King.
So, but I mean, so was it like on a wall or something like that? Like where?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was graffiti. So somebody did commit the act of defacing a surface at the school. It wasn't like, some sort of thing that was chalk or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
And the thing, yeah.
Well, so what I want to say about that is that these people in the administration are definitely blowing this way out of proportion. This is probably just some drunk college student, because that's how they are. Drunk college student on a dare or just wanted to do something stupid, as teenage, young males are wont to do, who just made a Nazi symbol or a swastika or whatever it was. Probably that person may not even be an actual Nazi. It may just be a jerk. It may just be some punk-ass kid. And one instance like this is not a crisis.
It may not even be that. It may just be people fed up with all of the nonsense from the left.
So they're swinging the pendulum all the way back to the other direction?
Yeah.
Could be. But look, either way, it's not a crisis.
Yeah.
One offensive symbol is not something that anybody should freak out about. It doesn't need to be on the front page of the school newspaper, because by giving it all that attention, you are essentially acknowledging this person and saying you are important. You, this anonymous Nazi, whoever it was that made this spray painting, you are so important. The president is going to write a letter about you. You are so important that we're going to make a big deal out of this, a big stink. We're going to have, re-education camps. We're going to have all kinds of, mandatory seminars or whatever else they're going to do. So go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, and again, like, this is all kind of ironic to me because, I've tried to start a Young Americans for Liberty organization in my school.
Mm-hmm.
Just, try to promote Austrian economics and non-interventionism, all that good stuff that we have in our philosophy. But I always get negated by SGA or the admins because for some reason I'm promoting white supremacy.
What?
And just because I'm yeah, exactly. Just because I'm pro state rights, they think I'm some type of Calhounist, some type of racist.
Hold on. So if you want to start a club, see, I never went to anything more than community college, and I'm glad for it. But if you want to start a club on a campus, isn't that like inherently your right as long as you can find like a sponsor or something? How can they tell you no?
It should be. Yeah. Well, I did find a sponsor, a rare conservative professor, but I have to get the okay from SGA because they control the funding, which is ironic because I pay a lot of money to go to that school.
Yeah.
Yet they tell me I can't run a simple club.
That sounds to me like what I would do if I were you is, I don't know if FIRE does this kind of stuff. I know they handle free speech issues on college campuses.
It's a private university, though, isn't it?
I bet you they take state money. I mean, yeah, it's private, but do you think they take state-funded scholarships? I bet you they do.
Yeah.
Peter, let us know how this goes, man. I appreciate hearing from you. Either way, reach out to FIRE and see where they would direct you to. We're coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Thanks for the call.
Gotcha.
It's Free Talk Live. Dial right on in here, toll-free. Bring up anything you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. If you want to sound like you're sitting in the studio with us, join the Discord server. I mean, sometimes I'm tempted to go Discord only just because it sounds so good. And I would love to have my whole show sound as good as those Discord calls. But then I always worry, like, well, if we go Discord only, then we'll probably miss out on some good calls.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still not ready to do that. Maybe we should do like a Discord day. Maybe we should pick like one day a week or something like that. One of the weekdays when we hardly ever get calls anyway, and just go Discord only. But for now, you can still call in toll-free as well. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Discord servers, discord.lrn.fm. Super easy to get in there. I agree. There's a little more setup involved, right? Like you've got to kind of alcohol spraying all over the studio here. Anyway, we're not drinking on the air. It's my roommate. Not that it's illegal. You can drink on the air if you want to do that. It just doesn't make for good radio.
Unless you're an advertiser.
It doesn't make for good radio in the long run. So there's a little bit more. You got to jump through a few more hoops, right? Like you got to download the app, Discord app. You got to get that, and there's one for just like your regular computer, and then there's one for your phone. And then you got to create an account if you don't have one. So, there's a few minutes involved in the initial setup. But once you create the account, then you just go in your web browser to discord.lrn.fm. That'll pop you right into our server. And from that point on, all you have to do to call the show is just open Discord and join the call-in line room. That's it. 2 steps. Boop, boop. And then we join you in the call-in line room, and then you're on the air with us. And it sounds like you're sitting here in the studio. So try it out when you get a chance over at discord.lrn.fm. And all the times we're not on the air, you can also just use it to chat with other listeners of Free Talk Live. They're there 24 hours a day in a lot of cases, so check that out. So, any other comments? Because, you kind of were listening to our last caller, Chris, who was calling. He went to a college that was apparently a private Catholic school. There was apparently a Nazi symbol, a swastika or something like that was spray painted somewhere in the school, and the president sends out an email about it. They're making a big deal about this thing. And look, I'm not pro-Nazi. I am anti-racist. That's like the one thing that we don't welcome on our Discord server, by the way. If you're a racist on the Discord server, you will be put into the toxic user zone immediately. But, you went to college. Does this ring a bell for you? Did stuff like this happen when you were in college?
There was certainly stuff that I wasn't too... I can only really remember, like, one protest at the university. And I would have to say, I think it was in relation to something of this nature. Mm-hmm. But I also have to say there was a lot of things I didn't like that the university was doing. Yeah, and it was a state university. So yeah, I think a state university is going to have more restrictions on it than a private university. I don't know though with certainty. People say, and they phrase it as, private schools getting federal money or state money, and I don't entirely know. While that might be true, I think the way it may actually work is that the money is earmarked for the student, and therefore it's not the school who is receiving it directly. Therefore, they may not have those strings attached unless they take money directly.
Yeah, I think they take the money directly because they're not going to give the student money, right? Like you don't want to give somebody $7,000 or whatever a semester costs these days. $10,000. They're going to go and spend that on alcohol.
If it's a state school, for sure, you're going to end up in a situation where the state school is obviously going to have to comply. But a private university, I'm not 100% sure on that one. I don't know.
There's no way they're going to cut a check to the individual receiving whatever state funding for the schools. So that's not going to happen. It's not even fiscally responsible. Right. I understand states aren't fiscally responsible, but that's insane.
Let's back up a moment. My company has taken money from the federal government on a number of occasions.
You sell parts for computers computers.
Right. And there's certain parts you just can only get from us.
Yeah.
It isn't the case that every single time we sell to the government that we have to sign a contract that says all this fine print that says we can't. We have to have equal employment and all this other stuff.
Sometimes they're just buying stuff from you.
Sometimes they're just buying some from us. If we put in a bid for a contract,
then
that's when all those terms come in.
Right.
So it may be something similar with these private institutions. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a question for somebody that is an administrator at one of these institutions. Yeah. They would probably know the answer to that question. If you want to join us here, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. But to respond to a Nazi symbol or any offensive symbol that is, put somewhere, to respond to it in any way besides this is graffiti. Okay, shouldn't matter what the graffiti is. It's graffiti. It's a crime. You've defaced somebody's property, and that's not okay. No matter whatever it is that has been put there, to give it more power than it has. It's just somebody scrawling something drunkenly on the side of a building to act like it's anything more, that there's some sort of crypto Nazis in the school that are, secretly planning to do Nazi things. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This is just the way college boys are likely to behave, because it's the way they behaved when they were in high school. They're still basically in high school. They always said about college that it's high school with cigarettes. It's kind of what it was, at least the college I went to. That's what they referred to it as, high school with cigarettes, because that was the only thing that changed, because now you could smoke. Yeah,
I remember not I wouldn't say this for the university I went to, but I did take a few courses at the local community college, and it was the second high school is how they or the continuation of high school is how it was phrased.
Same thing. It
was kind of a joke, but
I've never been to a college as far as as a student besides community college. So I mean, I can't say from personal experience, but having been around enough of these college students, I mean, we live in a college town, you and I.
Yeah,
it's Keene, New Hampshire. That's where we live. There's a relatively small it's not even a university. I guess it's college. It's just a state college.
I think there's a difference between the kids who go to the 4-year schools and the kids who go to the 2-year schools. It's not to say there's not some overlap, obviously.
What's the difference? Are they brattier at the 4-year schools?
I don't know. I don't even feel like it's so much that. It seems to be. It doesn't. I'm not saying that one is necessarily. I don't know if I
think they're going to act out more. I think college students at a 4-year college are going to act out more, and here's why.
Yeah, go for it.
Because they're leaving their parents' home in a lot of cases, right, for the very first time. So they've been, many of them, in very restrictive environments. They've been told what they can and can't do. Now, all of a sudden, they go from that restrictive environment to a less restrictive environment, where now they're living on their own. Now they've got a roommate that's their own age. They may have some college person who's in charge of the whole dorm, but they're not watching everything that they do. So they have way more freedom. They can buy the food that they want to buy. They can kind of go out and party as often as they want to go out and party. They can do things. They're not, in many of them, especially if they're getting a scholarship or if their parents are paying their way, they don't have to work. So they don't have any responsibilities tying them down. So they can basically just F around and have no responsibility whatsoever. Whereas a college student or a community college student, you don't get to live on campus. There are no community colleges I've ever heard of that have on-campus housing. That just doesn't exist. So these people are either still living with their parents, or they've moved into their own place, which means they're paying their own bills, which means they probably are working, so they're probably more likely to be more responsible and more mature.
So what I saw, what came off, this was my impression, having gone to or attended at both 2 and 4-year schools, but I mostly attended 4-year schools, mind you. But for most of my education, I only took a handful of classes at community college, and most of that was during high school. But anyway, what I saw was more along the lines of the kids who really weren't. There was I don't want to say they were. This was the case across the board, but I think there was a disproportionate number of students going to the 2-year school who were not. They were not, they were not in a position, I guess.
What kind of position?
Academically. Not everybody. There's also a percentage that were, elderly people taking classes, things of that nature too.
I don't understand what you're saying, though. A position academically? What does that mean?
They did not have the same standards, I guess. Or expectations, maybe, that I saw more of in the 4-year school. And it's not to say that there weren't kids who were very similar in their behaviors going to the 4-year school, but a lot of those kids ended up dropping out. So
like the bratty ones, the irresponsible ones drop out?
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about kids maybe irresponsible in that they didn't go to classes, things of that nature.
That tends to be what happens if you are irresponsible and you party all night. You're probably going to miss a bunch of classes and end up failing grades and things like that.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, it seemed like the majority who continued on, were
were more prepared for college than the kids in the 2 years.
Maybe it was the people you ran with, too.
It could be.
There's more coming up here in moments. 855 450 free
very
like
likely.
freedom. I don't imagine you joined the partiers.
What is it costing you in vet bills for that convenience of just pulling open a bag of
formulated, extruded, processed cereal bits that cost a ton of money anyways?
How do you feed your dog to derive not only energy, but a good coat, bright eyes, and a great attitude?
Come to Dynovite for help.
DINOVITE.com.
I found his raw meat diet on Dynovite.com.
With just the raw meat and the eggs and the Dynovite and the Super Omega on top of it.
Try Super Omega Fish Oil.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
Ground beef, white rice, eggs, including the shells, and the Dynovite supplement, and then the Lico Chops.
Try Lico Chops. Buy 2, get 1 free.
It just balances out his body and his mind and his spirit.
Adding Dynovite to their diet has every single dog in my kennel looking better than they have ever looked.
Their skin is so much better now that they're on the raw diet. I don't even give them the kibble anymore.
DINOVITE.com.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can dial in here. The toll-free number if you want to join us, 855-450, free like freedom. Coming up, violent video games and aggressive teenage behaviors. Is there a tie? Chris, you've got the story on the way. We're going to get into it, but first we got more on Venezuela. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. It's Ian and Chris in the studio here tonight. Our number is 855-450, free. If you want to join us, that's 855-450-3733 as we continue. Let's go to the phones, to the fun. We'll start out with Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you, how come you're so much in favor of, let's say, an uncle that has a background check? I mean, he can own and buy guns, and then he hands it out to his nephews. Mm-hmm. One breaks into a house, the other one deals drugs, and the other one steals cars, and they all have his guns.
So 3 nephews, let's call them Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Okay, go ahead.
Well, but this is what the New Mexico culture, and that's why we have the gun control law. You just can't, just because you're a cousin or you're a nephew or somebody's an uncle, just because your family has guns, your dad has guns, all of the sons get guns without proper criminal check.
Okay, so what you're saying is you want to have restrictions on family members' ability to just simply give a gun to their loved ones.
Right, and they say, well, he sold it to me for $50. But I mean, what's the? That's improper. The new law is that if you're going to purchase a gun, you have to pass a stricter law instead of just your family members just selling it to you. And then the thing is, that's what's going on here in New Mexico.
Do you think that, Sarah, that having more gun control laws will stop psychos from getting guns?
Well, of course. I believe in it. Of course. It's the harder to get, the harder that they're going to do
Okay,
it.
hold on. Now, you live in a welfare house, right?
Well, I mean, Section 8. It's called Section 8 subsidized.
Yeah. Same thing. So, now, do you ever see anybody around the welfare community doing drugs?
Well, I mean, I hear about it.
You've heard about
it. I never seen them.
You never seen it?
I hear about it.
You ever seen any, like, heroin needles in the streets or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I've seen them laying around all over the place.
Yeah, now wait a minute. Now that's illegal.
Highly illegal.
It's illegal to acquire heroin. It's illegal to shoot up heroin. So can you see that the fact that those things are illegal hasn't stopped it from happening?
Right.
Okay, so therefore, if the government cannot stop people from buying and using drugs, despite spending billions of dollars and countless hours of hours cracking down on these activities, that there's still people out there shooting up heroin right now as we speak. Can you understand that the same thing can apply to guns, where no matter how many rules and restrictions you put on these guns, that a psycho nut job who wants to go shoot somebody up shoot up an office or something like that, is going to get the guns that they want?
Well, I do think that the harder it is, the better, the stricter it is, the less crime they're going to commit with those guns. And
really?
So
have you heard about Chicago?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Chicago has one of the highest rates of murder and violent crime in the United States. Am I right about that?
I suppose I hear so.
Yeah. Do you understand that guns are basically prohibited in Chicago? You essentially cannot legally buy a gun unless you're like a Brinks truck, security professional and you've got all the right paperwork in order.
Right.
Okay. So how is it that a city where it's very difficult, like super ultra difficult to buy a gun,
legally at least,
how is it that same city has a dramatically high violent crime rate? People are getting shot to death in Chicago.
They probably do the same thing that they do here. Just somebody with a good record could buy their own gun.
No, it's not like that. It's not like New Mexico where there's even some semblance of freedom about purchasing a gun in Chicago. Some of these big cities like New York City and Chicago, some of the most restrictive places as far as buying a gun is concerned. But yet you still have gang members shooting each other. That doesn't make sense, does it, Sarah?
It's illegal guns. But something? Look,
it's illegal. Oh, so they've got illegal guns. So you've
admitted that you didn't solve your problem.
Right. What you've just admitted, Sarah, is that by creating all these rules and restrictions, you are driving the purchase and possession of guns into the black market, making them illegal guns, meaning that the person who wants to buy that gun, for whatever reason, has to be willing to commit a crime to do so, which to their mind is fine because they're going to use the gun in a crime anyway. Right, so if your goal is to get a gun to commit murder or to rob a store or whatever,
the legal guns are not interesting to people who with criminal intent in the first place
right.
because they're tracked.
Exactly.
Right? So really, what you want is I forget what they call them exactly, but they're
you don't want a serial number. You don't want to trace a record.
There's a certain name for that type of weapon.
We got Matt Roach in the studio here.
It's a burner.
A burner, yeah. Like a burner phone,
right,
but a burner gun.
So you want a burner gun. I think there's still a ghost gun, I think is also another name for it, too.
That's the thing where you can basically 3D print your own gun, essentially, kind of.
No, I don't. I think there's something similar in name as what you're talking about for 3D printing, but the ghost gun is a term that's used to describe a gun that doesn't have a serial number. Yeah.
Okay, could be.
So anyway, it can't be traced. Anyway, so the point that I'm trying to make is that there is a market for these ghost guns, okay, that are not tracked by the criminals.
I'd pay more for it. Wouldn't you?
Right. The guns that have a serial number you don't pay as much for them. So the idea
But Illinois, Chicago, they have to try something else. But why are you?
What are they going to try?
Wait.
What are they going to try? What else could they possibly do?
Well, I have no idea, but you know what? I'm talking about New Mexico and our law. And
she's talking about New Mexico, where they haven't tried everything they've already tried in Chicago, so they need to try the things they've already tried in Chicago and haven't worked.
Right. What she's proposing is to try the things that don't work in Chicago.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Isn't New Mexico one of the most heavily armed states in the country?
New Mexico?
Per capita?
Really?
Yeah. And they also have one of the lowest violent crime rates, just like New Hampshire, and we're also one of the most heavily armed states in the country.
Well, the thing is, our voters have voted all the legislatures that are for gun control. So you know what? If all the voters that wanted a freedom of gun ownership, they should have come out and voted against them. So why are they crying and complaining about it now?
You're persecuting a minority group here. When the majority doesn't. When the majority they're not part of that gun ownership club. They don't understand guns to begin with. So you're basically you've got a small group of people who are influencing a larger group of people who don't know anything about guns, and it seems reasonable because they don't know anything about guns. That's how you end up with these types of situations.
And they apparently don't know anything about Prohibition either.
Right. And somebody has an interest in banning these guns, right? It's in many cases it's police departments and it's busybodies, and it's what do we have? I want to say police industrial complex. Not the police industrial complex. The
there is such a thing. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not sure
prison industrial complex.
Okay.
Sorry.
Basically the same thing.
Right. They need more people coming into their private prisons because they're making money off of it. So it's in their interests to promote this kind of stuff. It's not being promoted because they want to save lives, because it's not going to save lives. It might put more people in prison, but those people get released, and you still have the same problem.
Sarah, thank you for the call tonight, and we got big news for our listeners in Albuquerque starting on Monday. I don't want to spoil the big news, but it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're in Albuquerque and listening to us on KABQ AM there, you may have to tune in at a different time, and it's going to be a good move for Free Talk Live starting Monday. That's all I'll say right now. But we'll let you know once that happens. Thank you, Sarah, for the call tonight. Your efforts are pointless because no matter what restrictions you put on things people want, there are always those who are willing to flout the law. They're willing to just do whatever it is that they need to do to acquire the guns that they want to acquire because they want to commit a crime with them. And they're willing to pay more to do it, and they're willing to jump through the extra hoops because they don't want it to be traced. There's more coming up here. Our number is 855-450 free like freedom. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free here. The number is 855-450-FREE. Whether it's gun control or Venezuela or coming up violent video games, we got to get to that story. On the way here tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
And our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Bitcoin.com, your premier source for everything Bitcoin related. And there is a lot to see over at Bitcoin.com. But if you're brand new to Bitcoin, if you're brand new to cryptocurrency, you really ought to go to Bitcoin.com. Get started there. They've got the Bitcoin Academy, the Bitcoin.com Academy. You can just, 10 minutes maybe 15. It's been a while since I've gone through it, but pretty easy to understand concepts once they're laid out in the right way. And they do a good job of it over at Bitcoin.com. Plus, they can help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend your Bitcoin. You can also get the latest news headlines or engage with the community on their Bitcoin forum. Go to Bitcoin.com and do that. Do a lot of stuff all over there. A lot of it's free. We go to Matthew. He's in Louisiana, listening online via the TuneIn app. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I don't know if Auntie Sarah realizes how when you pass these gun control bills, it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go.
No.
Like in Washington State, a bunch of sheriffs are like, no, we're not going to enforce this.
Oh, yeah, she was mad about that the last time she called in.
Right, and then in Connecticut, all the people were supposed to register their scary black rifles. Well, no, they didn't. It was like about 15% compliance, which was high.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, it's still about 1% compliance with the magazine ban.
So what you're pointing out here is even though these are laws that the government has put into place in these states, that even the people are just ignoring them.
The law-abiding, generally
purportedly law-abiding
for the most part, or at least the people who are not committing violent acts.
Right, the people who consider themselves law-abiding have decided, well, there are some laws that they won't abide by, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it makes people very suspicious as to why the government wants, to reduce their abilities to be armed. Now, this is a different topic about corporate censorship, sort of. I don't know how to describe this, but apparently there are some people who post their little girls or little boys swimming or doing other, gymnastics or other such activities where they're lightly dressed. And there are some kind of creepy dudes who like to watch these things, and they've gotten into this habit of time stamping the, shall we say, the exciting parts. So other creepy guys could go directly to the exciting parts and watch the exciting parts, which I don't know how you do that with YouTube because it's such a pain in the ass to move that little slider around at all. But
okay.
And some crusader noticed that these supposedly creepy dudes were doing this
You mean the crusader who happened to be doing the same thing the creepy dudes are doing, right? And then he was funny. Like all outraged over it.
Might have been. I have seen such things down here. We had this guy named Grant Storm who was crusading against gays and pedophiles, and he was found one day, shall we say, growing the hairy palm at Lafreniere Park out here in Metairie. So the police were like, all right, we're going to send you to jail, and then after you get out of jail, go away.
Wow. Yeah, not a surprise. So I did see this this story. I think somebody put it in our Discord chat, actually, on the news and show prep there in Discord. And as I understand it, YouTube has lost some revenue out of this. There's some companies who are acting offended.
Some companies had threatened to pull ads, including Peloton, which I would be grateful for. Their ad is so damned annoying.
Who?
Peloton. They sell an exercise bike, and they insist on screaming at you while they're selling it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my interpretation of this was something like the left was like going off on it, and so the advertisers reacted, and thus YouTube reacted, and therefore, like, all comments are now banned or something.
Great. Take them off. Take the comments off of YouTube. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's because it's basically if somebody posts a comment that is, you know, I guess sexual in nature or it's something that's not acceptable to YouTube standards, they will now like remove the advertising from the videos, even though it's not at all sexual, the video or whatever.
I think what they did was anything that has girl or little in the search bar, now all the comments are now disabled on those links.
Okay, got it.
So if you go to little girls in swimsuits, you go to the comment section, disabled. But they should have just simply disabled timestamping on the comment section. I mean, really.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the timestamps can be useful, like if you are in a video, or there's some video that
it seems stupid to me to disable
90-minute-long videos on global warming, and there's one key point you want to get to.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like way the heck in the middle of a thing. You know?
They're useful.
Just because certain people do bad things with a tool or a technology doesn't mean we should ban it. I think this is just ridiculous. It's overreacting.
Absolutely.
I mean, these were not videos, from what I understand. I mean, again, I didn't watch any of them, obviously, but
although I can understand, like, you wouldn't want, like, if you had a kid, and you and I don't, but if you had a kid and you had their, you know, gymnastics or their
hold on, the parent I think the original video that set this off, the parent actually was against removing the advertising and all of this, and it wasn't a sexual video. It was just somebody like posting a comment that was sexual.
Right, that's what he's saying.
A 5-year-old or something.
That's what he's saying. He's saying that the videos aren't intended to be sexual. They're like the parents taking videos of their They're like the parents taking videos.
They're not at all sexual.
That's what I'm saying. They're like the parents taking videos of their kids at like the gymnastics or you know the pool or something like that. But then some perverts getting in there with comments and typing in nasty stuff. That's the parents' responsibility to look. You're going to put your video out for the public to see. There's going to be some mean and or nasty stuff that gets posted there if it gets seen by people. So turn off the comments. You, as the video poster on YouTube, have the ability to disable comments. You can do that.
Right. We have to remember, it's the internet, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, there's people who get off on looking at people's feet. I mean,
sure.
You know, I mean, give me a break. You know, does that mean we shouldn't have any videos that have like people's feet in them?
Well, no, but what it does mean is that parents.
Absolutely not. We cannot have any videos that might cause an erection of any kind except for the purpose of procreation, but only upon consent of the king.
Here's the problem, though. The pervert is going to be turned on by a lot of things that the average person won't even think of, right? Like, you know, are we going to ban the Sears catalog, too? You know? Hey, thanks for the call, Matthew. I appreciate hearing from you, man. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. So the responsibility is with the parent. Number one, here's an idea. If you don't want creepy, mean, nasty people lurking in your YouTube channel, don't post videos of your kids there. You know, if you want to send a video to grandma, send the video directly to grandma. You don't need to post it online for everybody to see. if you do post it online for everybody to see, you probably ought to disable the comments. You might think to yourself, oh, the only people who will find it are going to be my family because they're the only ones I'm going to tell about it. You can always do the unlisted style video, I suppose. That's one way to do it. But if people start finding it, it's inevitable that somebody's going to post something awkward or uncomfortable or sick or anger-inducing on the comments section. That's just the nature of comments on the internet. It's people hiding behind their computers and saying whatever they want.
Does your dog itch, scratch, stink, or shed like crazy? Come to Dynavite for help.
Order a 90-day supply of Dynavite.
Everything we tried failed except the Dynavite.
Pick up 2 bottles of Super Mega Fish Oil.
Get the 3rd bottle free. Packed with omega-3, DHA, and EPA fatty acids.
Super Mega is great for your dog's immune system, healthy skin, and soft, shiny fur.
Dogs love it. Try Super Omega Fish Oil.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
At Dynavite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can dial in. The toll-free number here is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
We are talking about, well, whatever's on your mind. We've actually had a good amount of participation here tonight. We can get back into Venezuela and get into violent video games, which we haven't even started talking about yet here. But we ended up getting sidetracked by this conversation just a moment ago. Caller called in about the YouTube comments, offensive YouTube comments. Now, whether they be written by perverts or Nazis or just overall a-holes hanging out behind their computer screen, it's kind of like the history of the internet comment to be mostly bad, mostly undesirable, mostly
people trolling.
Yeah, detestable, trolling. Just people at their worst in these comments zones. And there was an interesting article that I was reading today that, again, I don't know where I saw this one. It might have just been on the Drudge Report. But it's about a reporter, a young lady, 12 years old, who stood up to a cop.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
In Arizona. And, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to play the audio, but she stood up for herself against an armed man who was who lied to her and told her that she could get in trouble, that it was illegal to put his face on the internet. That's false.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had arrested her for something, but I wouldn't at the same time,
She did have video, though.
Yeah, she didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah, and she had a camera. So, I mean, if he knew that if he'd arrested her, he'd look even worse, so he just figured he'd try to intimidate her.
Yeah.
But she made an interesting statement in a different article from brightlightmag.com about being on the internet. She's being interviewed by Brightlight about being a very young reporter. Like, she's the youngest reporter in the American Society for Reporters.
She started at 9 years old.
Yeah, 8 years old.
8 in that story? Oh, wow. These other stories said 9.
So this is her in December. So she's now 12. She says, one of the questions here, if you could go back in time and give your 8-year-old self some advice, what would it be? She says, 8-year-old me probably wouldn't listen, but I would tell that girl to never read the comments. People can be cowards online and say terrible things they would never say to your face. But 8-year-old me wouldn't listen, so I'll save my breath. Really, just smart stuff.
That's very true.
And so true. Just comments. I think it was Vice, actually, that shut off their entire commenting system at one point recently, like within the last year or so.
I think there's been a number of newspapers who've shut off commenting.
I think
or
you're right
they shut
about
off
that.
Commenting on certain articles.
Yep.
Which is actually kind of disturbing at the same time, because it kind of gives it kind of shuts down speech or communication. Or
it's not their job. Their job isn't to facilitate
I don't think they should
two-way communication.
I don't think they facilitates. Well, I don't necessarily think it's their job to facilitate two-way communication, but I certainly don't think that they should be, if they're going to have comments, right? I don't think that they should be, moderate, or I don't think they should be moderating the comments, I guess. I'm not sure if I should say that. That's the problem with
comments, is if there's no moderation, then people will post things that are not welcome, like, put things that are illegal or something on your comments.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Well, tell that to the the cops that are arresting you.
Look, no. Okay, but I don't think the cops should be arresting people.
Well, obviously.
So it's I think having an open conversation is a good thing. Like, I don't
totally
want to ban the people that I disagree with.
I'm with you, man. I have not closed comments on freekeen.com, for instance. That's where there's a bunch of
There's
trolls.
some trolls, yeah, definitely.
On freekeen.com. But there's also counter trolls. And,
That's true.
I let the trolls just have their fun in the comments. It's really, pointless to me. I don't spend a whole lot of time reading comments. I'll read the ones on Freekeen usually, just because there's usually good back and forth between the trolls there. But on YouTube, I don't spend time reading comments on YouTube. They're just all garbage as far as I'm concerned. But I think most people ignore the comments, so I think whether they're there or not is really pretty much immaterial. As far as the user's experience, your typical user going to watch a video or the typical user going to read a news article, I can't imagine many of them actually read the comments. It must be a very small portion.
I suspect it's a larger percentage than you think, but at the same time, I suspect that most people don't read the comments on most videos, but they do on some.
Yeah, whether it's comments or whether it's videos or whether it's articles, comments generally are pretty toxic, I would say, overall. And so I can understand why somebody would want to turn them off entirely from their site. I don't blame somebody for that at all. If the point of your website is to simply get your ideas out, then
there's still some good reasons actually to leave commenting on, because it increases, especially from like a financial perspective, because by leaving the comments on, it increases the amount of time people spend on your site, which increases where they numbers. Stand in like Google search and things like that.
Yep, that's true.
So there's actually some side benefits to and advertisers pay more for it. So right. It's
even though you're seeing the same people over and over again, right? Like if it's the same two trolls fighting each other, loading the page, 2,000 times.
That's an ad. It's money in your pocket.
They're hits, but do people really care about hits as much as they care about individual visitors?
I don't know exactly what they're basing the statistics on. Like, the details
if I'm buying
of
an ad, I want to know the visitors.
But
I don't care about the hits.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to pay more if you're talking about the visitors versus the hits. But yeah, I mean, it's if you're talking about depending on the price points and things of that nature. I don't really know the details of how things are being sold these days, but
so it's interesting though, right? Because like the web has gone through these different phases. Remember, there was Web 1.0, then there was Web 2.0. I don't know if they're on 3 yet, but I don't know who decides these things. But Web 2.0, the big difference was, now listeners or viewers or whatever can talk back. Now there's comments. That was the idea, was that Web 1.0 was we tell you, we the producers, we the webmaster, tell you what's important.
Didn't Web 1.0 have guest books still, or was that just considered Web 2.0?
Guest books. I would say guest books were the beginning.
Still interactions, even in the earlier versions, but I don't know.
Sure, there were forums way back in Web 1.0.
Yeah.
But the idea, I think, was that the guest book kind of was the early version of comments, and then you started to see those things in more places, right? So the guest book was just sort of like, sign our guest book. Now, or at least then, Web 2.0 came about, and it was like every article, every page, there's comments, right? There's more opportunities for people to interact with the other viewers on the site. So it became more of a thing. You had the things like Reddit or Dig. These social media started to come into play. Instantaneous commenting instead of having to reload pages.
I wonder if it's more about who was doing it or the masses doing it, because I feel like even in the mid 90s, like maybe 96 or even earlier than that, there was platforms like Slashdot. I mean, those were technical platforms, but they had a system.
Yeah, I think you're right.
To do commenting.
It has to do with the popularity. So it has to do with the widespread.
I think it was maybe more like when news sites maybe started adding comment sections and things like that, more so than just.
Well, and YouTube, right? I mean, they had comments, but YouTube didn't exist before 2006.
Yeah, YouTube is a fairly recent thing, I think, as far as at least taking off.
Yeah, it came out in the mid-aughts, and it didn't take too long for it to take off. So anyway, if you want to comment here on the air, Talk Radio's been doing it for 30 years. You can call in toll-free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And one thing you can say for sure about calling Talk Radio, despite the fact that almost no one does, is you're going to get heard by a lot more people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can go ahead and comment on some YouTube channel.
Especially this show. I mean, 200 stations.
Almost 194 stations. Now, to be fair, not every station is airing every hour of the show.
That's true.
If you call in, you're not going to be on all 194. But Sarah probably is, because she calls every damn night. So she's close to it. There's some stations that only take our third hour, and she usually doesn't call in the third hour, so they're missing Sarah. But Sarah's probably on more stations.
She's probably hit every station.
Sarah's on more stations than you are.
Yes.
Right? Because you're only on one night a week.
I'm on one day a week. Yep. Just one day.
So anyway, you can comment here, and our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And you're going to hit way more ears than if you leave a comment on any blog or on any Facebook post or even on our forums or in our chat rooms. More people will hear your ideas if you can get on the phones with us. Now, of course, a lot of millennials, they don't even want to talk on the phone these days, right? So maybe
I don't even know if they know how.
Maybe talk radio is going to die because of that. We're coming up. This is Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us on the radio here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And thanks to Joe Shull. He's a Free Talk Live amplifier, meaning that he gives monthly to the Free Talk Live amp program. In fact, he's been around so long, he's still got the old original amp class, which was a $3 a month amp. Because that's what we started at. We started at $3 a month, and we decided we were going to get rid of the $3 tier and go up to $5 as the minimum, just because, you know, these guys take these PayPals and Visas and MasterCards, take a chunk for their fee. And so we wanted the chunk to be a smaller percentage of the amount that people were donating, and we didn't think $5 was too much to ask. So he's actually still locked in at the old $3 level because he's been around for that long. So thank you, Joe, for your continued support here on Free Talk Live. You can go to the AMP program and join up just like Joe did. You can use PayPal, you can use credit card, you can use Bitcoin, BTC. Your choice. You get some cool perks for doing so, and you can help us get this show on more stations, so your comments can be heard by more people. Go to amp.freetalklive.com, ampamp.freetalklive.com. All right, so we were talking about Venezuela earlier here tonight, and there was just a few more things I think worth saying about it. Shots have been fired on the Venezuelan-Brazilian border. Venezuelan troops firing, a National Guardsman apparently, firing on indigenous people because the indigenous people are upset. They don't want to see this Nicolas Maduro continue. They're taking the side of the opposition, and the indigenous group got in the way, basically, when the National Guard and Army were moving tanks to the border. So they opened fire against them. And according to the Independent over at independent.co.uk, they're closing the Brazilian border. They're also now talking about closing the Colombian border, where the opposition is vowing to move aid packages from the United States and other nations over the Colombian border as of tomorrow. Earlier today, an opposition lawmaker traveling across Venezuela in an attempt to collect the humanitarian aid at the Colombian border said someone threw 2 large rocks at a bus in her caravan. Mariela Magallanes of the opposition-controlled National Assembly said the pre-dawn incident was a direct attack that left a backup driver injured. Ms. Magallanes said the rocks went through the windshield on the passenger side and that the driver was being treated for injuries. Dueling concerts near the border between Venezuela and Colombia are set to take place today. Richard Branson, you know, that guy from Virgin, super rich dude.
Yeah.
Rocket space guy.
I took one of his planes here.
Did you really?
Yeah, to Europe just a couple weeks ago.
Well, he is sponsoring a Live Aid-style concert featuring dozens of musicians, including rock star Juanes in Colombia, while Mr. Maduro's socialist government is promising a 3-day festival dubbed Hands Off Venezuela on the other. So it sounds like Branson is siding with the opposition. He's siding with Juan Guaido in this conflict. Opposition politician David Smolansky said, quote, "The eyes of the world will be on Venezuela," unquote. 600 tons of aid, largely donated by the U.S., has been sitting for 2 weeks in a storage facility at the Tienditas International Bridge, close to where Branson's concert will be held. Maduro, of course, denies any crisis exists, insisting the aid is a ploy by the Trump administration to overthrow his government. By what? Feeding people?
I mean, sure, maybe, but it's like are becoming a dictator, if I'm not mistaken, because
basically,
rejected the elections, or you've manipulated. I think it was manipulated the elections, and then
correct
Congress disapproved them or something.
He formed his own Congress last year, or late maybe 2017. They formed their own Maduro-controlled Congress and basically are trying to ignore the National Assembly. And the National Assembly is the one that's controlled by the opposition.
Okay.
And the National Assembly is not recognizing the new elections that Maduro is saying, I'm the new president. Well, the National Assembly is saying, no, you're not. This other guy is, Juan Guaido. And the Supreme Court, which is on the side of Maduro, is saying, no, Maduro is the president. And then you got all these other countries, the government, saying, no, Guaido's the president. But then Russia and Iran and I think Cuba are saying, no, Maduro's the president. So it's become this flashpoint for international conflict. And hopefully it won't result in invasions, because we do not want to see war break out in a place that's already, devastated economically. Because if it's bad now in Venezuela, having a war going on there is going to be way worse.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the war, I think, is more not so much that people die, but that there's not going to be anything accomplished. No. I don't think anyway. I think it's
best case you put another socialist in.
Right. It's in certain places there might be some advantages to going to war in the end if things work out well. But
when has that happened?
Until that, well. Yes, I mean until it actually works out well, obviously it's not good. So you definitely, I definitely think it's advisable to avoid war if at all possible.
So finally, the military of Venezuela has now placed a large tanker and 2 containers in the middle of the bridge at Tienditas to block supplies from getting across. So they're literally physically moving tanks to the Brazilian border. They're blocking off the bridge on the Colombian border because they don't want people to get food. Now, on the other hand, their claiming is everything's fine here. There's food on the shelves. Story over at RT they've got video of a dude shopping at a grocery store allegedly in Venezuela. And headline here, where are the empty shelves? Max Blumenthal tours Caracas supermarket. Corporate media grieve for the barren shelves and empty bellies in Venezuela, but are the alleged food shortages real? After touring a supermarket in Caracas, Max Blumenthal found plenty to buy, even craft beers. Quote, grocery shelves lie empty as food becomes increasingly scarce, says a headline at the UK Independent. The country's shops remain open but are, quote, sparsely stocked, The Guardian laments. Even basic commodities such as toothbrushes aren't available for purchase, bemoans CNN. Quote, hungry, unquote, Venezuelans must choose between, quote, torture or starvation, according to Bloomberg's grim conclusion. Mainstream media coverage of Venezuela gives the impression that President Nicolas Maduro is slowly starving his own people, a narrative which, as journalist Max Blumenthal found after surveying a massive supermarket in Caracas, is wildly deceptive. The store offered a wide selection of meat, produce, and dairy, although no low-fat Greek yogurt, an indignity which is likely the result of Maduro's tyrannical ways, Blumenthal jokingly hypothesizes. Most importantly, craft beer, a hallmark of heroic consumerism, could be found in the supermarket's alcohol aisle. Blumenthal also marveled at the store's huge variety of scented toilet paper, shampoo, and toiletries, the basic commodities which, according to CNN, are nowhere to be found in Venezuela. According to Blumenthal, quote, there isn't an issue here with food distribution or food scarcity. The issue is the buying power of Venezuelans has been completely destroyed because their currency has been so badly weakened by hyperinflation, speculation, and the flood of dollars that the government can't control here, as well as hoarding by private capitalist elements that support the opposition. Now that's a conspiracy theory if I've ever heard one. The idea that evil capitalists, who, by the way, are usually accused of wanting to make money, now the evil capitalists are, forget about making money. We want to hoard supplies to make the current government look bad so we can overthrow them and take control of the country. Usually, if you're a capitalist, And I'm not necessarily in favor of capitalism. I'm just in favor of freedom. Whatever it is that works. If you want to have your commune, go ahead. Have a commune as long as it's voluntary. If you want to be a capitalist, go ahead. Be a capitalist. Whatever. But normally if you're a capitalist, you want to be a capitalist so you can make money. So you can put your capital to work so you can make a profit.
I mean, isn't that the underlying...
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, idea.
So why would a capitalist want to hold their inventory off the market for political reasons? It just flies in the face.
Doesn't make sense unless there's some capitalist reason to do it, like depleting, reducing supply to increase prices. But they're not allowed to increase prices, so I'm not really sure.
But they're not. The allegation here is they're just hoarding. They're not even increasing prices. They're just holding on to everything. Further, the claim here is that I agree with one thing Blumenthal says is that the hyperinflation. The hyperinflation is definitely a huge problem in Venezuela. I mean, that is government policy. They're the ones who are deciding to inflate their currency at insane levels. It has nothing to do with a flood of dollars. He says the flood of dollars the government can't control.
Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Right.
I mean, look at
money
North
coming
Korea.
in.
I mean, they're looking for dollars. Right. That's usually not a bad thing.
Right. Except in Venezuela, you're not allowed to have dollars.
Which is kind of insane because
it's so insane.
You need dollars in order to purchase goods from overseas usually.
Right. Because they don't want the bolivar.
Right.
That's for sure. There's more coming up here in moments. You can share your thoughts. So what's the real story? The Russian media here is saying, there's plenty of food on the shelves in these grocery stores. There's more coming up here. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Free Talk Live.
Does this have chamomile and aloe vera? No, it has chamomile. This is chamomile. Chamomile. Manzanilla. Thank you, Maduro. Okay, well, now we're in the pharmaceutical section.
Toothpaste, toothbrushes, toothbrushes.
This is the video from RT.
Just basic commodities that aren't available or readily available to Venezuelans right now because of the regime that they're currently living under.
Oh, aloe vera. That'll match with my toilet paper.
With a guy who is just sarcastically walking through a grocery store.
Took me like a while to do that because there are so many varieties. Damn you, Maduro!
I mean,
we're now in the pharmacy.
So there's a lot of footage here from this grocery store. Lots of meats. Everything seems to be well stocked, and there are customers in this store. He says, "Is this a socialist market, or where is the socialist market where everything is free?" Is it a lie that everything is socialism in Venezuela? And the man behind the counter says yes. So Venezuela is a socialist country. There's no doubt about it. Both of the opposition party and the current so-called president are socialists. Like, they'll tell you they're socialists. That doesn't mean that they are completely without commerce. Now, it's interesting, though, seeing this store. It makes me wonder, is this like a showpiece store? You know how North Korea has these sort of showroom stores where only the tourists are allowed to go. Only the people who are being shown the ideal North Korea are allowed in these stores. They're not for the average North Korean. They're for show. They're for display.
They've got like painted apples and things like that.
I don't know. No, I don't think that's true. I mean, you can actually buy things from these stores, and there's video of people going into the stores. Now, you're not allowed to record video generally in these stores, but in North Korea at least. In this case, this guy is obviously recording video. There's no problem with it, and I don't know. I'm not going to say I support Maduro just because there's a grocery store with some food in it. I mean, there are stories coming out of Venezuela about trucks with food being waylaid by criminal gangs who they don't want to hurt the driver. They just want to rob the truck. They're just hungry people who see an opportunity to get some food in their bellies, and they're committing a violent act in order to do that. But they don't want to kill the driver. They don't want to like beat up the driver. They just want the driver to not fight back. They want the driver to just simply, pull over. They've got spike strips or whatever. They run cars off the road, motorcycle gangs, whatever they can do to get their hands on some food. So, this makes me wonder, if you are in Venezuela and you can speak to this, because we did have a guy call in a couple weeks ago who Mark had met at the Bitcoin conference in Miami, who currently is living in the United States but is from Venezuela, so presumably has friends that are still in Venezuela. And, he says that you can still go to a bar and you can buy alcohol. So, obviously there's still some business being done over there. But you've also got these studies being done on the people of Venezuela saying the average Venezuelan is losing significant weight. Like, I think the last numbers we saw were like 17 pounds in a 1-year time frame. So is it all just fake? Is all that information false? Have we been, sold a bill of goods that is not true?
I can say one thing with some certainty, and that is I know somebody who actually did visit Venezuela within the last 5 years, and they got robbed, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So
where were they?
They were speaking at a university. I don't recall exactly where they were, what city or anything even. But they got robbed. They had a laptop stolen from them.
Well, now, was it like gunpoint, knife point robbery, or somebody grabbed a bag and ran?
I don't really recall,
because that's a robbery, right? When you are threatened.
I'm not entirely sure, unfortunately.
Because otherwise, it's just a theft.
It was within the last 5 years, and I don't know if it was like somebody ran and stole his bag, but I know his laptop got stolen.
Yeah,
and afterward, my partner actually had to reload another device to replace that one when he came back to the United States. So, yeah, there's certainly crime in Venezuela. It doesn't really prove one way or another, how bad the circumstances are, but certainly
it does.
It seems like from a non-scientific perspective that it's not the safest place to be.
Wherever people are desperate, crime will increase.
Right.
Wherever people are hungry, crime will increase. And, even the people who would normally never consider doing things like that will be, in some cases, feel like they have to in a desperate situation. If it's about feeding their kids or starving, they're going to do what they have to do. And I'm not saying it's okay. It's not okay to use violence against your neighbors in any circumstance, whether you be Nicolas Maduro or whether you be a thug on the street. It's all violence, and it's not okay. But I still want to know, what's the truth about these Venezuelan grocery stores? Is this store that this guy's in, and they mentioned the name of the store at the very beginning of this of the segment here. It's a 6-minute segment. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But is this like one of those showcase stores where it's only for the rich and the wealthy or whatever? Is this guy part of the Maduro propaganda? He's certainly paid by RT. This is an RT produced video here, I believe. Let's go on here a little more.
Because I have dollars, and the dictatorship of the dollar controls the world. Okay, so I had a pretty normal experience at the supermarket. I was able to get pretty much everything that I usually get back home in the States, including like this bag of craft beer, until my credit card didn't work and I had to pay in cash. I paid in dollars. And that really shows what the problem is here, that I had to pay in dollars.
I didn't know you could do that. I thought that you could not pay with dollars.
It's
legally in Venezuela.
Isn't it something like it's not legally allowed, but it's the kind of thing where they do it anyway?
Well, yeah, in the black market you can pay with dollars. I knew that.
Yeah, but the black market's kind of the open market in Venezuela. It's unless you can enforce, like you have a police officer at like every grocery store.
Register.
You probably.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
but you would think a mega corporation like this is a big store, right? Like he's in a full-on superstore.
Look, even during Soviet times, like there's a lot of corruption in these socialist countries. So it's
that's interesting.
It's probably like even if there is a police officer there, it's like the grocery store is going to pay off the police officer.
Right, he's going to get $1.
Right, exactly.
He's going to be happy when he goes home. He got $1.
These guys are these the police and the military are supposed to be like starving too, right? So
purportedly
not having been paid in months, and et cetera, et cetera. So I mean,
let me go on here with his wrap up.
There isn't an issue here with food distribution or food scarcity. The issue is the buying power of Venezuelans has been completely destroyed because their currency has been so badly weakened.
Which is all about the government. I mean, that doesn't happen from the outside, which is what Maduro wants you to believe. His statements have always been like, this is an attack by the U.S. government. They're the ones ruining our economy. No. The U.S. government doesn't set your monetary policy, dude. That's all something that you did.
By hyperinflation, speculation, and the flood of dollars that the government...
Well, speculation is a private investment, right? Like when you speculate on a thing, if you bet that, for instance, the price of dollars are going to go up or down, or the price of oranges are going to go up and down, if you're speculating and you're buying stocks and you're buying these different monetary... I'm not an investor, right? Like, obviously, I don't sound like one. But you're speculating. You're taking your own money and you're speculating on things, which means that if you lose, you're just losing your own money. That doesn't affect the buying power of the money that you're using. That's just your own personal decision. And it might be a good one, and it might be a bad one. So it's the hyperinflation that's really the problem here, not to mention the government takeovers of various different industries. And I'm going to have to go back and see what the name of this store is, and maybe we can look it up online and find out, is this one of the grocery stores being run by the government? Because they have nationalized a lot of the industries there.
Yeah, they're supposedly they take it over. I wonder how much of that the takeovers are like, oh, we're going to take it over until we run out of food, and then it's just kind of gets abandoned, and then maybe they come back. Maybe the grocery stores come back or something.
I don't know.
They get taken over by the people who are, maybe originally owned them, and they start selling groceries again. I don't know.
It's a good question. This definitely is there's a big question mark that this video puts on the situation down there in Venezuela, because all the reporting until this one has always been about barren shelves, long lines outside the stores. So what's the story? What's the real story in Venezuela? The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. How do you get the truth if you're not actually there? Is it even possible?
I don't know.
855-450-FREE, like freedom. This is Free Talk Live. Coming up, violent video games. It's Free Talk Live. You can dial toll-free. Bring up whatever you want. Our number here is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. So head on over there and interact with other Free Talk Live listeners. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
So whether you want to talk about Venezuela and what is the truth about grocery stores in Venezuela. The store that the guy at RT was shopping at is called Gamma. And quick look up here. Excelsior Gamma appears to be the name of the company. I have not yet been able to determine who owns them. I don't know if it's the government or not. I'm guessing it's not, but I don't know.
Now I'm kind of wanting to know, can you place an order online?
Well, this translation isn't doing a particularly good job because there's images here, so I can't read the text particularly well. And anyway, we'll see if we can learn more about that. But if you have an opinion about the situation down there, you're welcome to weigh in. Our number is 855-450-FREE. Let's go to the phones, to the fun. Then, coming up, we're going to get into this violent video games. People have been saying for a long time that violent video games encourage young people to be more violent, teenage boys specifically, to be more violent. And you've got a relatively new study, Chris, that addresses that question.
Yes.
So we're going to get into that. And, of course, you're welcome to join us here and bring up whatever it is that's on your mind. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Plus, again, the Discord server is there, and you can call via the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. There's 4 of them. Just join any one of those 4 rooms. As soon as we notice you in there, we are going to hop in, and then you will be on the air with us. And you can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about Venezuela or violent video games or anything like that. Again, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. As we continue. Oh, and one other thing. I do need to mention Forkfest. It's coming up 4 months. Are you going?
Yeah.
You're going. All right, you went last year.
Of course,
Yep.
yes.
And last year...
I wouldn't miss it.
Yep. It's a decentralized libertarian camping festival in New Hampshire. And the location's beautiful. It's Rogers Campground. Beautiful white mountains, incredible view. Great people. The people that are going to be around are going to be liberty-minded folks, libertarians, voluntarists, liberty-loving anarchists, however they describe themselves. It's still a small event. I wouldn't expect more than a couple hundred people to show up. And last year we had more than I think we had more than 150 to 200 because of Jay Noon's wedding.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have Jay Noon's wedding this time around. So I don't know.
No.
Maybe attendance will go down. Maybe it'll go up. I don't know what to expect.
Depends on whether or not you counted those people in the first place.
I counted them because you can't really know for sure. 'Cause some of them did stay the night. Many of them actually stayed the night.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, there's no organization. There's no board of directors. So there's no ticket sales.
It's a guesstimate. Everybody who's taking it, we're all just taking a guess.
Yeah, we're just eyeballing. Looking around.
Yeah,
because there's no ticket. Now, what we could do is we could try to get some statistics from the campground and say, well, are the numbers up above where they would have been 3 years ago before this event happened? I mean, maybe you could kind of go at it from that perspective, but basically there's no real way to know. There's no real way to accurately measure besides just looking around and saying, this looks bigger than last year. So come and join us. It's actually the 5 days before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is a centrally organized, centrally planned festival that I believe is entering into its 15th year this year. But Forkfest is the one where there's no one in charge, which means everyone's in charge. So meaning you're in charge of your own experience. Whether you have a good time or bad time, that's up to you. Whether you just hang out with other people at campsites or you put something on for them to do, maybe a musical event, maybe a poker game, maybe, whatever it is you think would be fun, whatever it is you think other people would enjoy, you decide. That's up to you. Forkfest.parties, where you can go to learn more. It's June 13th through the 18th. That's this year in beautiful New Hampshire, Rogers Campground. Forkfest.party. And you can link over to the Forkfest chat room as well as the Forkfest forum there. And that's a way for you to get in touch with some of the other attendees and find out what's going on. Let's go to Michael. He's in Aberdeen, Washington, listening to KBKW. Hello, Michael.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Welcome. Good.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I heard you mention a little while ago about Venezuela's economy or financial situation that they're in, that the U.S. was not responsible for setting their internal economic policies.
That's right.
And yeah, I agree with that, but I think that you also need to point out that the U.S. is sanctioning them, and they're losing, $30 million a day because of those sanctions.
Yeah, no doubt. The sanctions, I do not support sanctions because sanctions end up hurting the people. I mean, the idea is it's going to punish the government, but it doesn't punish the government. The sanctions aren't taking food out of Maduro's mouth. That's for sure.
No, sanctions are violent against your own people. That just seems really messed up.
Yeah. They're hurting the Venezuelan people.
No, I mean, the sanctions are against the people. We can't do business. You and I can't do business with Venezuela. That's what a sanction is.
That's true.
How do you sanction somebody in another country that isn't under your control?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Michael, more?
Oh, yeah. No, that's about it, man. I'm about to grab some takeout food. So you guys.
What are you getting, man? What kind of food?
I'm getting some Chinese food.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that. Hey, thanks for the call, Michael. I appreciate hearing it from you.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Yes, sir. Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. I'm glad he brought that up because that is something that the Venezuelan government can legitimately blame the United States for.
Oh, yeah. Lots of countries can, actually.
Well, right, like North Korea, for instance, or Iran.
Cuba.
Cuba. Well, Cuba's things are starting to loosen up. So we're starting to see some changes in Cuba.
I don't think all of the trade restrictions and sanctions have been lifted.
No, they're not all gone. You're right. But they're loosening. Yeah. They're loosening a little bit. You can go visit now, which you couldn't do before. So tourism is a thing you can do now in Cuba.
Is it? Would I be able to go over and do tourism? Because I know a couple of years ago, people like reporters could go over, but you individuals couldn't. So there's plane flights
and family, you
but
can.
Not random individuals.
As I understand it, you can. I'm not a travel expert, but I remember when these things were happening, when at the very end of the Obama administration, they started to loosen some of the controls on Cuban visitation, and I know Carlos Miller
went. I remember that, but I don't. I was at that time. My understanding was that it was not allowed for the general population still, but if you were a family member, of somebody like living in Cuba, or you were a reporter or something of that nature, you could then travel, legally under U.S. law anyway to Venezuela. Obviously, people even before that were going to Canada and getting flights to Cuba, not necessarily legally within the context of U.S. law, but obviously, once you're left the United States, the U.S. doesn't really have control over it.
So from 2018, April, pretty recent.
Yeah.
Forbes magazine, Alexandra Talty talking about Cuba, and says here when Barack Obama rolled back regulations in 2014, making it legal and easier for Americans to visit the country without a tour group, there was an expectation of the floodgates opening for Yankee visitors. Major airlines worked for years to hammer out contracts, allowing commercial flights, while companies like Airbnb scramble to ramp up Cuban inventory on their websites. And by many counts, tourism is up. 2017, 600,000 American travelers without family ties visited the nation.
Okay, so that's interesting.
So it's
tourism is permitted then.
It's on now, which is great news.
Yeah.
Because the more we can mix with these people in these other countries, the better off we're all going to be, rather than these artificial barriers being put up by governments. It's Free Talk Live.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Dial toll free and join us here. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Violent video games, are they actually causing young people to be more aggressive? Chris has that story, and that's on the way. But we go back to the phones and the funds here. I do want to let you know, though, about clips.freetalklive.com. It's a new thing we've started back up within the last few weeks, and I'm glad they're back. Video clips of the show. Easy to share.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so instead of having to share a whole 2-hour-long episode, if there's like a little part that you like, you can just share the video clip of the part that you liked. And it's Eric Freerock. We brought him out of retirement from copblock.org. He is the one doing the production in the background, and I appreciate the effort. We're actually kind of doing a combo effort where we're helping him promote his channel. So when you go to clips.freetalklive.com, it actually takes you to the Liberty Bits channel on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll get in your YouTube inbox, or whatever they're called, the subscriptions, you'll get the latest videos from Free Talk Live. Alternatively, you can also, if you're not on YouTube, you can also follow us on Mastodon, which is the decentralized alternative to Twitter, and it's great. You can follow us there by going to toot.freetalklive.com. You will see the YouTube videos posted there. It's automatic. As soon as they go to YouTube, poof, there they are.
I see them all the time.
Right there on the Mastodon feed, which is sweet, right?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's right there for you. Same thing with Twitter. If you're still on Twitter, you can go to twitter.freetalklive.com. You can follow our Twitter there, and they'll show up there. And then also Telegram. We got a Telegram channel at telegram.freetalklive.com. So any one of those 4 ways, YouTube, Mastodon, Telegram, Twitter, you'll get the clips. And then click on the ones you like, share the ones you like, share them with your friends, your family, on your social media, and that helps us, and it helps communicate the ideas of liberty, maybe get us some new listeners. That'd be nice. So once again, clips.freetalklive.com. Check them out as we go to Kirby in Indiana, watching us on YouTube, as a matter of fact. Go ahead, Kirby.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Hey,
man, as far as Venezuela goes and such and so forth, I was wondering, were you guys familiar with a Major General Smedley Butler?
Yes.
United States. Okay. Then you're familiar with his book, War is a Racket.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, I mean, obviously we have to tell our listeners who this guy is in case they don't know, because there's probably a lot of people out there listening who's never heard the name Smedley Butler before. I take it you're familiar with War is a Racket. Do you want to explain what that is?
Well, yeah, certainly. Major General Butler started out fighting, chasing Pancho Villa, fought in all of America's banana wars, and eventually retired and wrote a book called War is a Racket. And essentially what he said was that the United States government and its military are simply leg breakers for organized crime organizations, that America has always been basically a fascist government that is in bed with organized crime figures, which is big business, Exxon, Mobil, Dole, Fruit, which is who he fought to prop up in the banana wars. It's you can find his video on YouTube for free. I would suggest everybody watch it.
Now, what's the video? Did somebody take his book and make a video out of it, or I guess it was like a pamphlet, right?
It's like a 15-minute speech he presented in the 30s.
Oh, okay. So it's actually video of him from the 30s? Like,
yes, sir.
Like a movie reel, basically, that's been transferred to video. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've never actually read it. We've had many summaries given of it on the air here over the years on Free Talk Live. It's sort of one of those. It's one of those things that you can point people in the military to. It's like, oh, see, this guy, he was a general, and he's telling you war is a racket. He's telling you that he was a hired thug, basically, for these corporations through the military.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen Diaries of an Economic Hitman.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
It's a perfect companion book to it.
Right.
And I don't say that to down America because, honestly, I love my home.
Of course.
But America has yet to grow into its own ideals. And
well, remember,
backwards away from them.
Don't it's easy to confuse, and the government wants people to do this. That's why they try purposely to mix terms around so people can be confused. America, people love America, and a lot of them around the world love Americans. They love the tourists that come into their towns. They love the Hollywood movies that Americans make. They love a lot of the products that they buy from America. There's a lot to love about America. Of course, America also includes Mexico and Canada. But there's a lot to love about this place and the freedoms that we do have. On the other hand, the government is not America. The government is a criminal enterprise. And
exactly,
the government is evil. And it's not just the American government. It's all of them. Every single one of them, whether it be Venezuela, Canada, Mexico, all of these governments are doing wrong. They're hurting innocent people within their own country, and many of them, like the United States, hurting innocent, peaceful people outside of their own country's borders. But you never want to confuse the two. The America that we love are the people and the freedoms, not the government, right?
I wish democracy had solved this problem, but it didn't.
No, democracy is part of the problem.
It is, because this is not a democracy. We're supposed to be an association of free and independent states who have their own laws and work together for each other's benefit, but are not so centrally controlled. This is more fascist or communist than it is Republican.
Yeah.
And it's not taught in schools anymore. When I was in high school, my government class consisted of 2 semesters of us playing 1776.
Playing 1776?
Yes. The teacher divided us into southern states, northern states. I'm a black gentleman.
Okay.
57 years old. I was John Rutledge of South Carolina.
I'm not familiar with John Rutledge.
This is how he was a big plantation owner.
I see.
And we had to play our parts true to what they would have wanted and come up with a constitution.
Mm-hmm.
We learned more about government and the intercourse between men and the founding of our country than I could have learned in 8 years in a university.
Sure.
We don't teach children what it is to be free.
No, the government schools will never teach that.
Watching TV.
Right. The government.
They think free is.
Yeah, the government schools will never teach that. I mean, it's against the interests of the state to teach children about freedom.
They teach obedience.
Stand up when the flag.
This was a government school, however, but I was being taught by old people who had seen the worst of America and didn't like it and wanted to see it change. Does that make sense?
Sure. And again, it's the government schools that have a message they're promoting, right? The government schools don't want to promote freedom because the government benefits from your ignorance. The government benefits from you believing in them. They want you to be programmed, essentially, and that's what these government schools do, and the private schools to some extent. I mean, they're not that much better, But there's
which is why you see.
Go ahead.
Which is why you see people jumping on the Bernie Sanders bandwagon.
Well,
a top 1% earner who wants to redistribute my wealth.
Yeah, he's got what? How many houses does the guy have? But I mean, whether they're on Bernie's bandwagon or but hold on, whether they're on Bernie's bandwagon or Jeb Bush or Trump or whoever, none of these people are any good. Yeah, they're all bad.
No, they're all POS. I can't say that.
Thank you for that, Kirby. I appreciate the call tonight, man. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Definitely appreciate it. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. I think this interview with this 12-year-old reporter that I mentioned earlier tonight has a relevant portion here, since we're talking about education. Yeah. Question to her. You've said, quote, I think a lot of adults tell their kids they can do anything, but at the end of the day, they don't actually let them do anything, unquote. Can you elaborate? What are some examples? And she says, it's so true. I was the only 7-year-old I knew who was allowed to bike around town. Can you imagine?
Wow. That's actually pretty impressive in today's age.
Impressive that she was the only one?
That's not impressive that there was somebody out there that would let their 7-year-old bike around town by themselves.
She's got a little more to say
that's
about
what she's
it.
Saying.
She's got a little more to say. We'll share that coming back here in a moment on the way kids are being raised these days. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free to join us here. Bring up anything that you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
So we're going to continue with your calls and thoughts here. And don't forget, you can go to freetalklive.com. And I mentioned the AMP program earlier, but please join the AMP program if you want to help us out. It's $5 a month, and it makes a big difference. Go to amp.freetalklive.com. You'll get some cool perks and get the list of what those are. Learn more at amp.freetalklive.com. So I said I got a little bit more from, and I think her name is Hilda, Hilde. That's pronounced Hilda, right? It's like an old lady's name.
It is.
You don't hear Hilda very
I knew
often.
a Hilda, and she was 97 years old.
Yeah. So anyway, this one's 12, and she's a reporter who stood up against a cop recently. And we didn't play that audio, but just because we haven't had time.
It was good.
We haven't had time. I would like to get to that at some point. It's just not going to be tonight. Anyway, there's an interview with her that has had some relevancy in the discussions we've been having here tonight. And the last caller was just talking about the government schools and how, god-awful they are, and the kids these days and the way they're being raised. And I thought her perspective on this was particularly interesting. What do they say? Out of the mouths of babes or whatever. So the question she was asked, this is an interview. She's being interviewed by brightlightmag.com. And this is kind of like halfway through the interview. Question. You've said, quote, I think a lot of adults tell their kids they can do anything, but at the end of the day, they don't actually let them do anything, unquote. So the reporter asks her, can you elaborate? What are some examples? So Hilda says, it's so true. I was the only 7-year-old I knew who was allowed to bike around town. Now, for us, I mean, those of us here in the studio, and there's 3 of us. There's just one guy who's not talking because he's not technically on the show with us. He didn't want to be. I said he could be, but he didn't want to be. But anyway, we're all in our 30s, right? Early 40s, late 30s. And, I mean, we were all allowed to bike around.
I don't know about at 7 years old, though.
You didn't have a bike at age 7?
I had a bike. I could go as far as my mom could see.
Okay. Well,
I mean, maybe by like 12, I could, go around the neighborhood and maybe even further without, not technically allowed, but,
Maybe. I remember, going out in the woods and playing, with my friend alone with no parents around.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm not saying I couldn't do that, but as far as, you can go really far on a bike.
Sure.
I mean, it's not that hard to,
She says further here, I have friends who are 11, and they aren't even allowed to walk into town. A lot of parents are such phonies, she says.
And the question is, how big is this town? I mean, are we talking about a town of 20,000 people? Are we talking about a town of 5,000 people? Are we talking about a town of 100,000 people? How big is the town?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's particularly big here. Selinsgrove is where she's from. Population 5,900.
So it's a really tiny town.
Small town.
Yeah. So I mean, it wouldn't be unreasonable for a 7-year-old in a small town to do,
But she's the only one. She's the only person in that age range. So she says further, a lot of parents are such phonies. They say how they embrace their kids' creativity, but hardly let them cross the street without freaking out. How are kids supposed to do great things in the world if they aren't allowed to live in the world?
I've been arguing this since forever. My entire life I've been arguing this.
She says further, kids are a lot smarter than adults think. I have friends who are way smarter than I am, but because they're stuck inside their house or school all day, no one knows. And she finally says, the best thing about my parents is that they get out of the way.
So true.
I just think that's really brilliant. And it's so sad at the same time.
No, it's unfortunate because the parents can't get out of the way to the degree, at least that I would want to get out of the way.
You mean legally they can't?
Legally, I mean, like, you can't let a 7-year-old work. Nobody's going to hire them. I mean, you can't let a 7-year-old drive. I mean, maybe they can't really drive anyway because they're not capable.
Can't see over the steering wheel.
Yeah, but the point is that they should be able to if you can get over the humps and so forth and of doing those things. I mean, I certainly think like a 13, 14-year-old should be able to drive.
I mean, whatever, as long as they're able to capable of doing those things. And if you were to allow younger people to mature at the the speed they want to, which is what she's talking about here. She's able to go out there and do the things she wants to do, and she's become a nationally or internationally recognized journalist at age 12. I mean, she started at 8.
Yeah.
And so she at this point has spent a third of her life doing journalism, which is amazing.
I think it's interesting that it certainly, I don't think anybody's going to argue that every 7-year-old or 8-year-old is going to be able to go out and do this kind of stuff on their own. But there are kids that age who are totally capable and should be able to, and they should not be inhibited because there are 22-year-olds that aren't capable of some of these things, right?
In this article, in this interview, she talks about some of the mistakes that she made when she was a even younger journalist, and how she's grown in the last 4 years of doing journalism as a young person. Not stopping somebody artificially is very important. It allows them to grow at the pace that they're ready to grow, because a lot of young people want to go to work. They want to go out there and create a thing for the marketplace to, whether it'll succeed or not doesn't matter. They should have the freedom to make mistakes at that young age. You don't want somebody to get their first job when they're getting out of college at 23.
That's a really bad idea.
It happens, though. And it happens a lot.
It does happen a lot.
So anyway, I hope we get a chance to play the video. Maybe not tonight, but on another night, of her standing up against the police, because it's inspirational. I mean, more people ought to be able to do that stuff. So toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. I just thought that was a really interesting viewpoint from a young person of what it's like. She's sad for her friends. They're stuck in their houses, she says. They're stuck in their schools and in their houses, and that is not a place you can't grow in those environments if you can't get out there and actually do something in the world. Sad stuff, but it's so true today, especially so. And yes, there are government laws that get in the way of parents like letting their kids go to the park by themselves in some states, so there's some risk to the free-range parenting.
I'm not even thinking about those laws. Yeah. I'm thinking about less laws that are even not that restrictive, like, just employment. You can't,
I mean, you can't get a job.
You're not allowed to, I mean, it's not even like you can say you let your kid work, fine, but nobody's going to be able to employ them because they will get in trouble for it.
Right. And nobody wants to employ anybody under the age of 16 anyway, even though you can do 14 and 15 in most places, because the restrictions the government places arbitrarily on them are insane. Mandatory breaks.
And really ridiculous.
Let's go to David. He's in New Mexico listening online. Go ahead, David.
Hey, yeah, her name means battle, so that's appropriate.
Huh. All right.
She probably has European, Northern European, the Scandinavian connection in her family. It's not Hilda in the United States is a kind of a frumpy name, but it's a little more and it's. In the United States, we pronounce it kind of ugly. You say Hilda, and then in Europe, Scandinavia, it's more Hilde.
Hilde.
Kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, Hilde. So it's not quite so frumpy sounding. To answer a question, I thought about it after you'd asked me. George Norrie, his advertisement probably was for some health product that he was pushing, that was running his ads. It was kind of funny because that night that you'd asked me that question, I was the replay from his previous night's program is played on that WGNS out of Tennessee, and I was on that night right after your program, and coincidentally on his program on that replay right after your program again tonight. But what I called about is the coming civil war, or actually it's kind of beginning here in New Mexico right now. Really? Because there's an incompatible showdown, meaning legally incompatible, basically orders or intentions by. We were talking about the sheriffs the other night. There was 29 of the 33 sheriffs in the state were not going to enforce the gun laws.
Right.
The legislature's
That's what got Sarah all riled up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that movement has it exponentially increases every day. Yesterday there were 29 sheriffs and 6 county commissions that had voted to make their counties sanctuary counties. Now there's 14 counties and 3 municipalities have added to that.
How many counties in New Mexico total?
33.
Wow, so more than half, or almost, or was it 14 plus the other few? Or 14 total?
No. Well, there's 2 different things. There's 33 counties, but there was 29 of the 33 sheriffs is what we had. Now it's 30 of the.
Wow. Are refusing to enforce the new gun restrictions in New Mexico. That's pretty good news. David, thanks for sharing that with us here tonight. Check out more of Chris on his show. He's got his own video and audio program. It's Freedom Decrypted over at freedomdecrypted.com. He does that every Saturday.
And I will do the violence story tomorrow too.
All right. It's Free Talk Live. We're at Anarchapulco 2019 doing some bonus interviews here on the podcast version of the show, talking with all kinds of the interesting people that are here at this wonderful event, this beautiful place at the Princess Resort in Acapulco, Mexico. Daniel Kim is with us here from getmonero.org. Monero, which, as our listeners probably know, unless you're brand new to the show, is the world's premier, I would say, privacy coin. Welcome, Daniel. Thanks for being on Free Talk Live.
Thanks for having me. Yes, Monero is what Bitcoin noobs think they bought.
So, meaning that people have a mistaken impression of Bitcoin to think that it's anonymous, when it's actually a completely public ledger. Monero, on the other hand, some of the privacy coins have sort of 2 versions, where there's the public version and then there's the privacy version. There is no public way to send Monero. It's all private transactions all the time, right?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And that is a strength of the project, is that it's you can't opt out. You can optionally provide transparency to your particular account if you want to, but that's opt-in on the user's part.
How would you do that? By giving someone your private keys?
So Monero has 2 private keys. There's a send private key and a view private key. So if you provide a view private key, that is giving kind of read access to the incoming funds into the account. So there's kind of like I think
interesting.
The use case would be like an audit sort of situation.
Got it. I like Monero. I'm a fan of it. I've always been into cryptocurrencies for a long time. We were one of the first. We're the first radio show to accept cryptocurrencies as payment for advertising. We helped Roger Ver find Bitcoin way back in the day, so we've got a bit of a history. And so as soon as I heard about Monero, I was very interested in that. I like all the fact that there are multiple privacy coins. Competition, obviously, is a good thing. But when the darknet markets started accepting Monero, I thought, that's an endorsement. If the darknet markets are saying Monero is good enough for them, then that's probably a sign that it's a pretty good technology. So I guess I'm not sure what we're talking to you about besides Monero and why it's great. Was there a story that you wanted to tell?
I think the darknet case gets bandied about quite a bit when Monero comes up. But I think, and I mentioned this in my talk, is that there are some important use cases for people who are actually, squeaky clean. As far as why something like Monero would help them out. One of them is tainted coins. So when you have a fully transparent ledger like Bitcoin is, and also some other coins that claim to be privacy coins, but actually only a subset of transactions are, the ones that fork off of Bitcoin, the main
Zcash or whatever.
That's right. Zcash would be one. Actually, Dash, is another. So the main activity happens on a transparent blockchain, and what unfortunately happens is that you have cases of people being falsely accused of the misdeeds of others just because they happen to be a transaction away. So, for example, somebody sells their car and accepts a transparent crypto for it. Unbeknownst to the seller of the car, the person providing the transparent crypto was involved in something that was not so cool. And now the person who simply sold his car is now under suspicion of, being an employee of this bad guy. So basically, transparent ledgers have the unfortunate social effect of socializing reputation, right? Because basically the reputations of the participants within the transparent chain end up getting kind of blended and mixed into each other. So it's paradoxically the squeaky clean people with absolutely nothing to hide who need something like Monero, because in Monero, what you do is your own business and what everyone else does is not your business. I mean, so there's no possibility of being falsely accused like that.
Right, because the information isn't there to look at in the first place for anybody.
Right. So just like Bitcoin, Monero has a distributed blockchain, which is sent to miners and nodes around the world. And the difference is that an ordinary Joe looking at the Monero blockchain can't learn anything.
Right.
The thing is, to get any sort of information out of the Monero blockchain, you need to own some of it. And then what you would do is you'd kind of use your private key as like a sort of decoder glasses through which you look at the blockchain. And when you do that, then the transactions that you personally were involved with
are
visible. Still, everything else, which is everybody else's stuff, which is not your business, is not. I mean, it's just a very intuitive and sensible way to organize it. And one thing also that I mentioned in my talk was that this observation that people tend to group the projects that have a concern for privacy as quote-unquote privacy coins. So, one aspect of being at a sort of like a nonconformist conference like this one is the opportunity to kind of re-examine language. And so what I want to point out is that when you talk about the coins in your pocket or the bills in your wallet of fiat money, you don't call that your privacy cash. Right?
Even though nobody necessarily knows how much of it's there, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the cash is private. We all know that, but we don't go around saying, well, these are my privacy funds. It's just cash. And there's nothing nefarious about that. So, on the other hand, with transparent blockchains, you have this situation where random strangers who know your account, your address, can look up how much money you have. Random people can, for example, if you work at a business in which is enlightened in crypto, and they do their payroll in crypto, and you get your paycheck in crypto on Friday afternoon, if you have a transparent blockchain, well, like the other people in the company probably also get paid Friday afternoon, so now you can go on a little fishing expedition, find out how much your coworkers make.
Well, at the very least, you could see how much they were being paid, but you may not necessarily know to whom they were being paid, right?
Sure.
So there's some level of pseudonymity with the public blockchains, but it's not anonymous.
Sure, right. But another disturbing thing is that the capability of decoding things is much smaller for the little guy than it is for the powerful institutions.
Yeah.
So you have, the advent of chain analysis and elliptic, which are companies whose job in life it is to try to put
forensic analysis.
That's right. Like they want to put names and faces to Bitcoin addresses and sell that information to people who want to know, which is just not the little guys. So you have this information differential in which people are being kind of suspected. And in any sort of system like this where you have imperfect information of the identities of everyone, you're necessarily going to have to make a probabilistic analysis of basically the probability that a given Bitcoin address is a quote-unquote bad one, right? It's not going to be a binary because you're working with all this different information. So this process is going to have false positives. It's going to have people falsely accused, and that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
So anyone in a transparent blockchain needs to constantly be basically doing KYC on everyone who sends them crypto.
That's know your customer, where there's a bunch of requirements that the government puts on people, and it's absolutely awful. So let me ask you some tough questions here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
And by the way, what's your role with Monero? What do you do?
Oh, I'm a community volunteer. I just am like many
so you're
others.
Not a programmer, you're just a fan. You just.
I mean, I do code.
You do.
But,
okay.
I mean, yeah, there are many people in the Monero community who are just passionate about this project. They feel that it actually is quite important for humanity. Actually, in this point in history in which there is just so much data out there on everybody, not just the government, but also commercial interests who basically see people as the customers to bilk, and this network of information that's being put together for everyone. It's just it's rather creepy, really. Like the terms and conditions that people are forced to accept whenever they make use of any sort of service, like Gmail or anything. They basically forfeit all expectation of privacy. And so something like Monero is just one little step, even though we're in a world in which privacy is pretty much dead. This is just one little step that people can take to control their own data.
All right, so let's see, some tough questions on Monero. I've been following it for a while. I've got some experience, testing it out, and for a while, at the very least, you had to have a full node in order to really use Monero. I don't think there was a mobile wallet. I know Edge Wallet has implemented Monero. Is there an easy yet secure way to use Monero? Because as I understand it, with Edge, even though there's going to be some level of security, it may not be as secure as doing a full node. Can you speak to the ease of use for a new user today?
Yeah, that's evolved quite a bit. Like many other things in this project, there are fundamental, massive improvements being made under the hood, but there are also usability improvements. So there were community members who wanted to build wallets for mobile platforms.
Yep.
And I remember the story being one of them wanted for their code to be closed source, and they wanted to monetize it, and the community basically...
Nope.
Yeah, right. It was like, if
it's closed source, you can't trust it.
That's exactly the response they got. And so now at this point, there are open source wallets for both Android. So the Android one is called Monerujo, Monerujo, and the iOS one is called Cake Wallet. And both of these are, I'm hearing great things about them.
You haven't tried them yet yourself?
I'm not a mobile user. But I hear great things about them.
Yep.
And of course, in the Monero community, people are kind of encouraged to complain. Basically, I mean, it's a very open community, a non-pumpy sort of community.
Mm-hmm.
There's
actually,
or just cheerleading, like blind cheerleading, which tends to happen. With a
lot of crypto,
with the sociology of a lot of these projects. So, also My Monero is a light wallet.
That's the online one, right?
That's both web, and they now have a download that you can do a Windows app download for that.
All right, that's pretty cool.
So there are new options coming on, and Ledger Nano S support is now officially up. Right, so we have that avenue. Of course, the old school ways are still there, and arguably the even more secure than having an extra layer of code that you're trusting on.
Right.
So
you're talking about the full node, where you would download the full Monero client to a desktop or a laptop computer and run that.
That's right. Yeah, have your own copy of the blockchain. Right. Have something there that you can sign transactions and send money and also look at your balances. Yeah. That's of course still there.
Now, I remember hearing, a year or so ago that there was going to be a fork of Monero's blockchain, that somebody wasn't happy with the direction Monero was going, so they were going to do Monero Classic or something like that. Yeah. Did that ever end up happening? Have there been a few different forks? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's true. That there have been.
Did anything ever pan out for those guys, or
no?
They're nobodies.
Yeah, they're nobodies.
Okay.
So unlike the case in Bitcoin and Ethereum, in which you had really genuine philosophical arguments in which both sides had some meritorious points to make. This happened in Bitcoin with the block size limit.
Yep.
It happened in Ethereum with the what to do about the hacked DAO.
Right.
And so Monero has had nothing like that. We've had imitators, kind of try to piggyback and do their thing, but
they just wanted to cash in. One of those kind of things.
They might have had some arguments, but nobody follows them.
Mm-hmm.
So in effect,
so it's not worth my time to split off. If it's possible to split the coins and go and do that, probably not even worth. whatever time I'd have to spend on it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
because that's, whenever Bitcoin splits, like, should I go through this hassle and then have to sell these near worthless coins or whatever?
Right.
I haven't even looked into it.
One refreshing thing about Bitcoin is, Monero, because I like many people, I kind of started out, almost exclusively a Bitcoin
sure.
guy, but in
They were first.
In Monero, we do regular hard forks. So
Right.
every 6 months, there's a new hard fork. Because
for a software upgrade.
That's right. There's a recognition that we might need to break backwards compatibility in order to introduce new features and benefits. And the community is on board with that. And so far, we've had many, like 7 or 8, if I remember right. And none of them has had the contention and drama and name calling. And I don't want to be too disparaging, but
sure.
There's a lot of prima donna, autism spectrum, insult flinging.
People hiding behind keyboards. Imagine that.
Yeah. We it's nice that aspect of the Monero community. I really appreciate. They're passionate, but also scientifically skeptical people. There are a lot of, for some reason, there seem to be a lot of physics PhDs. There are a few others that I know.
Are the fees higher to send with Monero typically?
This used to be the case because
I noticed it at one time, and I'm looking at the charts right now, and it doesn't look like it. So what changed?
Yeah, right. So in the last hard fork that happened, which was last fall, like 5 months ago, I think, we put in a technical improvement, which got largely kind of ignored by the crypto press, but represents sort of a fundamental improvement in the actual nuts and bolts of how crypto works. This is called bulletproofs, and this is basically a space-efficient way to verify without knowing the actual amounts that got transferred. It's a way to verify that transactions did not artificially create coins, right? So this is a necessary thing to prove in Monero or in any cryptocurrency. You want to make sure that the inputs and outputs are legitimate, and that you're not using an overflow situation or something like that to generate.
You're not trying to cook the books.
Basically. That's right, exactly. It's like maintaining the integrity of the ledger. So this was something that was done in Monero before the hard fork. It's done in Monero after the hard fork. The difference is that the math that is used it's been basically upgraded, and so the byte footprint that is required to record the verification shrunk by over order of magnitude.
Wow.
Right.
That's a huge improvement then.
And the thing is that in Monero, since the transaction fee that gets charged to the sender is proportional, I mean, not exactly, it's a function of the size of the byte size of the transaction. So basically, overnight, transaction fees also drop by an order of magnitude.
Wow.
And so for February 2019, the median transaction fee has been 0.2
it's not
US
even showing
pennies.
up. It's not even showing up on this chart here at bitinfocharts.com. It's not even breaking into the the chart.
Right. It's kind of like Bitcoin Cash kind of territory as far as the transaction fee.
Right.
But in the case of Monero, you're getting privacy protections.
Amazing. Because to me that was one of the, back when it was expensive, when it was it seemed like it was a couple bucks or whatever per transaction on a normal priority to send a Monero transaction. I'm like, well, you can't buy your coffee with this. Now apparently you could.
Yes, it's true.
That's huge.
Another thing is that part of this drama in Bitcoin that's happened over the block size happened because of basically looking into the future and worrying about how miners in 50 years are going to make a living, right, when the block reward goes down to zero, right?
Yeah.
So basically, once the 21 millionth Bitcoin is out there, then miners will have to rely on fees.
Only the fees.
Right. So somewhere along the way, I think that kind of led to a mentality of screw the users, being insensitive to the plight of having to pay a large fee to get an on-chain transaction put in, which is kind of a legitimate point of view, which kind of fueled the divorce between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash.
Right.
In Monero, this is being kind of sidestepped by the use of a tail emission. So until the middle of 2022, the miner reward is it's a continuous curve that's going downward. It's kind of like Bitcoin's curve, except we don't have halvenings because the whole process of the halvening, it makes for exciting news, but
it's arbitrary.
Well, yeah, it also kind of introduces stress into the system, right? Because, like, think from the point of view of a miner, like, there's a calendar date on your calendar, like, that's circled in red, in which your, like, income's going to get cut in half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of disruptive. And so in Monero, we have a smoothly decreasing curve so that every single block has a slightly lower reward to it.
Interesting.
Until the year 2022, when it hits 0.6 Monero per block, and then we're going to freeze it there.
Okay.
So sometimes this gets a bit of a negative reaction. Like, that means we're going to have eternal inflation. But I need to point out that there's different inflations. Linear inflation is completely different than exponential inflation.
Sure.
So a constant tail emission of 0.6 Monero per block is a constant inflation. And if you look at that in a percentage term, the percentage, the annual percentage of inflation of Monero is going to constantly go ever closer to zero while never getting there, right? So basically in 2022, it's going to be something like, 0.8% inflation.
Okay.
And then it's going to gradually become 0.7%, 0.6%. So basically we have security that we know that our miners are going to get paid forever.
Yeah.
So we don't have to introduce this basically conflict in which we identify some group out there that's going to have to pay the miners. They're already provided for. So we relax about that in Monero. And I guess the price of that is that you have to there's a social contract that we're okay with not having a hard cap on the coin emission.
Oh, so there's no maximum for...
There's no maximum because of this 0.6 per block that'll continue forever, right? So basically, emission curve looks like it's gradually sloping up in a very, very gradual line forever, right? But if you look at the math of that, what the miners care about is getting paid, and that's a linear thing. What macroeconomics cares about is the inflation rate, and that's a percentage thing.
Okay.
Right? So basically what you end up having is a situation in which the money supply of Monero in the distant future will start at 0.7% per year in the year 2022. Then it'll gradually peter out as the years go by to zero. So, in a world in macroeconomics in which 0.5% inflation is considered rounding error because, at the aggregate economy level, people don't even know what the inflation rate is to 0.5%.
Well, right.
So it's basically rounding error. And so it's...
Well, beyond that, predictable inflation is completely acceptable as compared to arbitrary inflation, which is, of course, what we're subject to with government money.
Right.
With government money, it's like, politician, they decide they want to crank on the printing presses like in Venezuela or whatever, and then you get absolute hell and hyperinflation and huge problems and issues, and it's all completely political. With cryptocurrency and Monero or the other ones in many cases, you know what to expect. This is the way it's going to be from here on out, unless they change the rules, which they could do in theory, but probably won't.
Right.
So it's much more predictable, much more accountable, and so it's not really a problem. It's not a problem at all.
Right. And even gold, which people think of being as sound money, and people usually don't consider the fact that
it's being mined.
Yeah, people are digging it out of the ground. Right. And actually, I did the math in some of my plots that I showed today. The World Gold Council actually makes a stab at that.
Do they?
Yeah, they have yearly estimates of how much gold there is above the ground, and they've done this for at least 10 years. So when you look at the effective inflation rate of the gold supply, it comes out to about 1.7%.
So more than twice what Monero's
rate
would be.
That's right. So I understand how people have reluctance when they're used to thinking about the hard limit of 21 million in Bitcoin and having an initial reaction of kind of discomfort when they think about an alternate scheme like in Monero, which again was done to make sure that the network can be secure for the long term without invoking some sort of conflict within the stakeholders of the ecosystem to figure out who's going to pay for network security. So we feel that this tail emission is a great solution, that it feeds the miners and also gives you a negligible percentage inflation rate, which makes it still sound money.
I love it. I love Monero. I'm a big fan. Another question, maybe for new users or people who want to become a new user. There are some exchanges that offer Monero for sale. I know I've got an account on Kraken, and they will sell me Monero. But that, of course, any exchange, you're kind of on the books, at the very least, with the fact that you have bought Monero. Now, obviously, they don't know where it goes once it leaves once it goes to wherever you're withdrawing to, it's then off the radar. But is there, what would you recommend as far as, what's the best, most private way to acquire Monero in the first place, besides, just a person-to-person transaction?
Yeah, so this is interesting because it brings up the issue of metadata. This is what you're saying, is that the centralized exchanges can put an identity to the Monero address that you tell them to send the Monero to.
Right.
But of course, once it's in the Monero accounting system, you get the benefits of privacy then.
Right.
So in a way, privacy is dead. All this metadata, we've lost.
Yeah.
We've lost. This is Monero is not going to magically give you some transparent clothes or something. It's just one small tool, and probably in the bigger scheme of things, it's probably not going to work if somebody's really has something nefarious to do that they really want to hide. It's not going to work. There are going to be too many old-fashioned analog world ways to find people. So. I guess one point I want to make is that because of that, and also because if anyone wants to get into Monero at any sort of scale as far as investing goes, and I only mention this since that with my Wall Street background, I try to help people who want to move some large positions. So that's just impossible to do without disclosing your identity. So it's not that it's going to magically make you like James Bond. It's just that you're opting out of giving even more data to the network of the sea of data that's being assembled on you by not just governments but also companies that are looking to make a buck off people.
It's a little black spot where they can't go and look. A little oasis of privacy.
Yeah.
And as I've said before on the air, privacy takes effort. It takes time. It takes money. And I'm glad to see that y'all have reduced the fees dramatically. That's good because that lowers the amount of money that it takes to remain private. So that's really important.
Right.
That's huge news to me. I'm really glad to hear it. But you do have to spend time. So, take a little time, learn about Monero, this has been a good interview, by the way. We're at 25 minutes now, so thanks for sitting with me here.
Sure.
And talking about this. But, take some time to learn about it. What I would recommend, if you want to avoid being on these identifiable exchanges, there are exchanges out there who don't care as much about who you are. So some of the Chinese exchanges, if I recall correctly, they'll let you sign up with an email address and give you some limited amount of exchanging that you can do. And so if you just give them a fake email address and whatever, then you're in, and then you can send Bitcoin in there or something like that, exchange that into Monero and withdraw that into your wallet. So there are some ways to do it if you want to avoid having that first step being on the record somewhere.
I see. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I myself, I only deal with U.S. exchanges.
Right.
To answer your first question about obtaining any crypto through a less centralized way, there are, of course, as you know, the burgeoning
the decentralized exchanges.
That's right. Yeah. So BISC
are any of them is there any volume on BISC right now? Because I remember when they started, I checked them out and I was like, oh, there's not really anything here. Is it different now?
I myself haven't checked in a while, but there were. I remember seeing on the Monero subreddit some posts from some of the people involved in the BISC community saying that hey, check it out, we've got a dozen Monero offers. Something like that. So,
all right.
There's
something there.
There's something there, yeah. So it's could be an option for some people.
Yeah, worth looking at. That's one of those tough things where it's like, oh well, how do you start getting volume if there isn't any volume? It's hard to get that ball rolling. But hopefully, once they do, it'll be easy for people to get in there and swap things without having an intermediary and the annoying KYC process. Was there anything else that maybe you felt you wanted to say about Monero since you're here and people are listening?
Well, I guess just generally, I think it's a very important project for humanity.
Yep.
And I don't think that's really an overstatement because there is...
I agree.
In this...
now more than ever, we need privacy, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it should be unapologetic, too. I mean, it's a human right. It's been recognized as a fundamental human right to not have... To not be having somebody look over your shoulder 24 hours a day. This is just one small step that people can take to reclaim some of their data footprint.
Thanks, Daniel Kim from getmonero.org. Really appreciate you being on Free Talk Live.
All right, thanks for the interview.
Yep,
Cheers.
Enjoy the rest of the day here at Anarchapulco 2019.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.